is working, and since we're getting into that. Hey guys, Tarke here, and we are joined by Grim, Octavian, and Ziggy. I just realised the pointing audio doesn't match up with the camera order on screen, but that's fine. What has everyone been up to? And since we have your beautiful background footage, Octavian, what have you been doing this league?
I started with a Fire Trap Scion that I really only expected to be like a few days as a starter, so I could get some funds together for a Blade Vortex build I've been planning. But I'm probably going to be sticking with it for a lot longer because it turns out 200% damage effectiveness is a lot of damage effectiveness. And so Fire Trap sort of has, for single target at least, obviously it's limited in clear because you can only scale the AoE so much, but for single target, Fire Trap has like basically unlimited scaling now. It's very similar to KB. That's the only other build I've actually played that has the same sort of upwards potential. I've gotten it to the point where I'm one phasing Shaper before he has the time to do more than one thing, and I can still, I think, double the damage that the build is outputting, maybe a little bit less than that, with some like really good Abyssal Jewels and fitting 2-socket Bubonics in and that sort of thing.
While we continue, I just want to say Grimro had some audio issues, so he jumped out. He's now jumping back in, and that fixed it.
Oh, okay, there we go.
All right, okay, cool. So one thing I was curious about though, because I was really hyped about Fire Trap as well, but the thing which put me off it was just the clear just felt really bad. But the single target is godly. Have you considered maybe just using like an Arc Trap 4-link just for clear, and then just keeping the Fire Trap for single target maybe?
Yeah, I'm using the Shaper Touch gloves with the throw an additional trap and the supported by traps, so you could just get a 5-link Arc Trap set up in there pretty easily, or a pseudo 5-link. I personally don't mind the way that Fire Trap clears, and I absolutely love the way the skill feels. Like the new aesthetics for it are amazing, the new sound effect and all that. So I don't mind clearing with Fire Trap. I've not played it before up until now, and I've played Lightning Trap before, and I've played a little bit of Arc Trap, or a little bit of Arc in the past, not Arc Trap. So I just wanted to, play with something new. But if you want to take the build and just throw an Arc Trap in on a 4-link, it'll probably still clear all sorts of trash all the way up to T16 just fine.
Well, I definitely like off screens in open maps. It seems like most maps Fire Trap actually does fine, even though it doesn't have the same AoE potential.
Oh, like I'm definitely not arguing that Fire Trap is anywhere comparable to Arc Trap for clear, but I don't really mind. I just want to play the skill I like.
It's a really good skill,
not bad.
But it's like, I think I'll let you go on, but just it's one of those things of when you feel the difference between having to throw 1 trap and 2 trap, like that's when it feels like really noticeable. So like Ziggy's been doing a lot of Arc Trap, and you can just like throw 1 trap, clear the entire Incursion, and just be like, feels amazing, man. And I did a bit of leveling Fire Trap, and it was like, this feels really good for bossing. And then the second I had to throw a second trap, just missed that 1 mob. That's when I was like, I wish I was playing something else. But what were you going to say? Sorry, Grim.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, like, I watched Octavian's stream, and even by my standards, it looks like pretty acceptable clear speed. It looked pretty decent, so I don't think you'd need to run an Arc Trap. It was pretty fine.
So what have you been up to then, Grim?
Me? I've been just trying lots of builds. I tried Raiz in like T16 maps and stuff like that. It's pretty good. I think they did pretty well balancing most of the skills this time, especially Raiz. It feels a little bit too fair, but it's really usable, so that's good.
That's a great description. Too fair.
Yeah, I mean you can't scale it like you can with some other skills.
No, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Why do you think some people are struggling with it? Because I saw your video and you seem to think it was like pretty decent, but most of the people in my chat have used it, so it's terrible.
Oh really? I'm not sure, really. Like, I guess it depends on what bow you're doing, and you need crit, obviously, and Abyss Jewels. Like, if you don't have good Abyss Jewels, you're just not going to do any damage with bows, right? It's the same with wands. Like, the only damage scaling you're taking on the tree is elemental damage increases, and a lot of the bows don't have very high LE damage rolls by themselves. They've kind of just got attack speed and crit, so if you don't have Abyss Jewels, you're just not going to do anything. So, yeah.
I think that's what it is. Like, it feels good when you have good gear and a good setup. When you don't, it doesn't at all. But they're probably just these people that are trying Rain of Arrows and saying it feels awful compared to other builds they've played. Probably just really have played many bow builds and like not realizing that's just kind of bow life unless you're using one of the best skills and have a good setup.
I mean,
But it's
yeah,
still amazing
because
to
it's
do.
also like there'll be league starting on it as well. So like, dude, my bow league starter feels a bit weak. What is this? So when they used to like league starting on Sunder, then it's going to be quite a big difference, you know.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
first
like
choice for a league start.
since like the start of PoE, it's always been like that. Like spells, like you can just throw anything at it and it'll scale fine. But if you want to play an attack skill, you actually have to put some thought into your gear and get like stats on it. So if you don't get that, it's gonna feel bad.
So how's your league start treated you then, Mr. Ziggy Daniel?
Oh, it's been very, very good, actually. Very nice. Started with, so I played like fire traps at GGG, and I was going to start with that as well. But I was like, I mean, I played a bunch of it when I was there. It was the thing I played the most when I was over in New Zealand. So I was like, I'll do something a bit different. So I was like, I have a unique idea that no one else will think of. What about we use the newly buffed Archon traps? So now I seem super unoriginal because everyone's playing it, but Arc traps are pretty good, man. It's really freaking fun. I already liked trappers the way they were. I really like the way they burst down bosses. You can prep for bosses. It's the same for mines to a lesser extent as well. But you get that smoothness of regular clearing and play with a trapper that you don't quite get on most mine setups. Not all mine setups, but some mine setups feel very smooth. But it's yeah, I always love that kind of bursty throwing out like a bunch of different traps, and also the trappers tend to have a little bit more variety in skills you use. Before, certainly, like you had to use 2 to 3 traps, but now even with the redesign, they managed to make it a lot nicer to play and a lot stronger without losing that part of trappers, because you still have the large cooldown traps that have a sustained effect that are worth using. In addition to the regular traps being spammable and feeling good, so really liking it. Really liking it, and I've had a great time in Incursion. Been playing hardcore Incursion Trade League to start off with, and I've had very good experience in terms of getting things, but my like crafting and varling for the most part has been awful. every time I croc something with a Varlorb, it does nothing, and every time I use a super corruption, it just like re-rolls it or destroys it or something like that. First trapper gloves I crafted destroyed. They re-rolled into Shaper, a garbage Shaper item in the temple. But yesterday was pretty good though. 21-20 to Varlock, so that was good.
Wow, nice.
I had
very
a really disappointing tier 3 corruption recently. You know, there's the new, I think it's called Shadow Stitch or Slither Stitch, and it's like the corrupted sacrificial garb from Xeria. So I did a few Xeria runs. I got the chest. I'm like, oh, amazing! I can now tier 3 corrupt this, because I thought it was a guaranteed. And it turns out it's not guaranteed. It's you use the tier 3 corruption and you might get the unique.
Yeah.
So I ran through it all, SSF by the way, hit it, and then it gave me a 5-link Shaper chest with like pretty good life and res. And I was really sad, and the stream was like, why are you sad? That's really good. I'm like, it's not the unique I wanted. Because it's a guaranteed 6-link with 2 corruptions. So for SSF, that's pretty huge. And I've been really unlucky with 6 links. So yeah, I was a little disappointed by that. But,
What are you playing, Tarke?
So I've played quite a lot this league actually. So I wanted to league start on Vol Righteous Fire and Scorching Ray, because when they released Vol Righteous Fire, I thought that's the most broken thing. Like this needs to be nerfed, and it was going pretty good. But Crohn's, by the way, I had to take a break during my league start because I just finally got like hit with the IRL sickness like an hour in. So I kind of took a break. So I started leveling again on day 2, and then died while leveling, re-rolled into Blade Vortex, and that was a similar case of, I'm playing this very interesting, unique build. It's like, oh, everyone's playing Blade Vortex. So I played that till 90, finally got a Tinker Skin drop after 4 months of chancing Sadist Garbs in SSF. I finally got the Tinker drop. I made a Trapper. Turns out the stream doesn't want to see any more Trapper streams. I got shouted at. So I am now playing a Vol Blight Occultist, and Vol Blight feels really cool. I really like it.
I'm pretty hyped to give Volblade a try myself, actually.
No.
No.
my skill, go away. You can
No,
play
you played traps first, then I play traps. I'm just doing hand-me-down Tarke builds, okay? It's the only way I can get by.
That's fair. One of the things that I really like though about the Vol Righteous Fire thing, so I wanted a league start on that, but Waggle recently had a video go on Reddit, because he's now playing that and it's really powerful. And one of the top comments was like, can't wait for all the other streamers to pretend they had this idea first. And I'm just like, but I did have this idea first. I was playing it on day one. But yeah, so how are we all actually finding Incursion then? What's the verdict? Is it actually the best league ever made?
Yeah, I think it's the best league that's ever been made. Yeah, definitely, absolutely. It's got something like for everyone. Like you got your new players, they have something. Like in the Atlas, you'll always have something to do, and at Endgame, there's like lots of different things to try out and explore. So I think it's definitely got the most variety of every league and the most content as well. And there's lots of loot, obviously, which is nice. And there's no bottlenecks. You're never like, oh, I gotta wait for this abyss or anything like that. You can just go.
I mean,
I think. Go ahead.
You say there's no bottlenecks, but there kind of like is one that you opt into and it doesn't even feel bad. You know, you talk to Alva, you look at your temple and you think, I want this room or I want that connection. You know, it does slow you down somewhat, like any other league mechanic would. You have to stop and interact with it. But that interaction is actual interaction and not just, you know, waiting for the league mechanic to give you some monsters to kill. You think about how you're building your temple and you're progressing, and that's awesome.
I don't know. It doesn't slow me down too much. Like what you can do and what I discovered you can do is you talk to Alva, you set it up, you go straight into the thing, and when you zone in, like there's like the screen loading, you can hit V in the grace period and look at the rooms really quick, and then just figure out which one you want to do, and then just run straight into it. So it only takes like a few seconds of downtime. And in terms of connections, what I've discovered is, like for me at least, if I just clear the whole incursion, I always have enough keys to just open every door anyway. And you'll get an explosive room at least once, so you can always make your way to the boss with that. So the doors are largely irrelevant. You just spam open all of them, for me at least.
That's one thing I want to talk about, because so GGG have said there's a guaranteed key in every single incursion room where there's an unlocked door. And the amount of people who told me this isn't the case, and I'm pretty sure it's a case of they've just been unlucky and the one mob they haven't killed is the mob which drops the key. And I've tried explaining that a few times on stream, and people don't take very kindly to that. And I'm really curious how GGG can really balance that. And I think that's one of the things which... So I've been really enjoying this league. But this is a very weird league to balance, because you need to make it somewhat challenging at top end, even though we all have like 20 seconds left at the end of our incursion. But then not completely like lock out people who keep missing the key every time or don't quite make the timer. So how do you guys feel that it works on that kind of level?
That's the thing. It is rather punitive to people that aren't doing well. Like the better you're doing, the better it is for you, and the more gear you get, and the better you get. So it's kind of a rich get richer in a way. So if you are really struggling, then it needs to be something that if you want to engage in and do really well, then you need to improve your setup, or get a little bit better at it, or do some lower tier content. And I know when I was like streaming the first 2 days, there was a really significant number of people that were not enjoying it and saying that they just couldn't kill the bosses, or they just couldn't get the keys, and the temples they ran were absolute garbage and they got nothing from them. So people were having a pretty bad time. But then I noticed like day 2, day 3, day 4, those exact same people came back and said that I finally got to a point where it's really starting to come together. It's really working. And their opinions of the league were really high. Like those people were really happy with it, because I think that feeling of overcoming that hurdle seems to be a really positive thing for people, rather than just it being doable right from the outset. So it seems to be like the way they've approached it is the better way to do it in terms of the overall satisfaction. Though I don't doubt there's some new players that just like tried it and just like, oh no, this is terrible, and then quit the game. Probably. But for existing players, it seems pretty good.
And one thing you can do to sort of use the mechanic actually as a way to help progress your build without having to constantly butt your head up against pardon, apparently I'm dying, without having to constantly butt your head up against incursions that you can't quite clear, is if you say you can do like T3 incursions, but your build can't like handle T5s, but you have a few T5 maps, you can run like 1 or 2 T5 maps, and it's okay if you fail those incursions. Just get them technically done, go in them, kill some mobs, get back out. And then if you run like maybe 8 or 9 or 7 or 8 T3 incursions, when you go to do the temple, it'll be a T5 zone. and it'll drop a bunch of T5 maps and a slightly higher level gear and better stuff for you to help improve your character. So you can sort of, with very little investment of actual maps on a given tier, you can get a large zone of that level on which to farm to improve your map pool and improve your gear. I've been doing that with T16s, or I did that with T16s a few days ago in the league. Like, I had 1 or 2 T16s and a bunch of 14s, and I ran those 2 T16s just to sort of tag my temple with their eye level. And then when I went to run the temple, I got Maze of the Minotaur, Lair of the Hydra, that sort of thing to drop, and it helped expand my red map pool a bunch.
Just to add kind of on top of that, the current working theory with how the temple level works is it's the average level of the top 3 maps that you did. I haven't completely tested this myself, but like that's what a lot of people have been telling me and what a lot of people have been saying. I don't know if you can tell us anything about this, Ziggy, but if you do like 3 T16 maps and then a bunch of T1s, in theory you should end up with an 83 temple.
Well,
That's just what
the way
I found.
Devs explained to me that it works when I was there was just quite simply it's the average plus a modifier, and the modifier
Right,
is
okay.
dependent on like the top one that you've done, and there is a cap, and it's capped by the one that you've done. So
Like
if
83
you
would be,
if you do like a bunch of, I don't know, item level 60 zones, and then you do a tier 16, it won't go to tier 16, but it might gain like 5 or 4 levels or something like that. But if you
Right,
do
okay.
if you do a bunch of 68 maps and then a 70 map, then it'll probably cap up to the 70.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I was. It seems like you can do like a few high ones and then some middle ones, and you'll end up with a high one still, right?
I mean, you
really
should just
good.
be able to do one higher one. So in the tier 16 example, you could probably do, I don't know what like the modifier limit would be, but you could probably run a bunch of you could run 10 tier 14s or tier 13s or whatever, do 1 tier 16, and it should bring it up to tier 16
Yeah.
because of the modifier, depending on how that modifier scales at that level.
Yep.
Yeah, just with the keys as well, since you guys were talking about it so much, I've found at least that the keys mainly drop off rare monsters, like 90% of the time. And
like it.
those are really hard to kill. They have a lot of health, almost as much as the architect in some cases. So that might be where a lot of people are getting really frustrated with it, because like you have enough time to kill the architect if you get time from it, but then to kill the rares to get the key, it's a little bit like, I mean, I'm not getting time from that, so I'm running out of time. So yeah, it's a bit difficult. And I also do think they're kind of overtuned a little bit. Like, it's so much to the point where I can't actually do red maps on an MF character because I get one shot if I peek in a door because I got no chaos res. I'm not saying it's a problem, but like for a new player who doesn't really necessarily have access to chaos resistance and doesn't know what's going on, that could be a big issue.
I think that is the best thing, and the idea that a new player doesn't have access to chaos resistance is complete rubbish, in my opinion.
But it's hard to get on res, my
It
dude.
really isn't.
They're also,
It really isn't.
the
Go
new
on,
player is
I'll let you
also
go on, and then I'll.
the new player is also pretty unlikely to be doing, a red map on
I mean, I guess so.
on
Yeah,
a
that's fair.
squishy character with no chaos resistance. They're not going to be at that tier of content. They're going to be, the player dying with 2.1k life and no life nodes on the tree in like a T1 map. That's where the issue would start to crop up, I think.
So there's a few like really interesting points. One thing is a statement I actually heard in regards to WoW, but I think it applies very well to PoE balance. Is when it comes to builds, it's like, imagine you were playing the worst possible build 10 years ago. You can't get any worse at PoE, but there will be some builds who are still at that level, and everyone else has gotten better. So that's the thing which is really weird about Incursion. How do you balance Incursion around the guy still playing Ice Spear, because someone is still playing that shit, and then Grimro on his full MF setup? And that, I think, is a really interesting thing.
I think you just don't, right?
Yeah, but
I think
like...
you just, to an extent, you don't
Yeah.
balance around that.
Yeah.
But with the whole like defense thing, though, I think that people have really over-exaggerated how scary certain things are. So
Ooh, I don't know what that one.
okay, so there are 2 things which are very scary in Incursion. There's the Chaos Spitter, and then there's the Ellie hit guys. If the Ellie hit guy connects, they like chunk you really bad. The Spitters are a mix of physical and chaos. So if you have a Mortal Call, that blocks most of the fizz damage, and then you need something for the chaos. So you can mitigate that quite well through an Immortal Call, and then most builds can probably use like an Itziri's Promise. So that's like a pretty easy source of chaos res. Or you could have like one rare with Chaos Res on it. And I know Grimro's like, but I have 18 quantity items, Tarke. Sedemas don't have Chaos Res.
They can if you corrupt them. +4.
And,
Is it the meta for it?
And also, like, so for example, I started on Blade Vortex, and I was doing the whole crit Blade Vortex thing, because that's how everyone builds Blade Vortex at the moment. And I was looking at Steel's profile, and Steel specced out of crit and went Elite Overload because it gave him enough points he could then get phase aggro. Anyone who's played, like, caster with and without phase aggro, that alone makes you so much tankier this league. Just having that teeny weeny bit of spell dodge. And every single patch...
Not teeny weeny.
Since,
30%.
like... Well, yeah, like, it gives you huge amounts, right? But, like, every single patch since, what, 2.8 or something, we've gained more and more damage. And it really isn't that difficult to spec out of one cluster to either get some more defense or more attacking cast speed so you can dodge things better because your build feels faster. And it's just like, just get one defensive cluster and you're fine. I don't know, what do you think?
What I really quite like about this whole topic is that it feels like it's been so long since we've had a league that brought something that we had to pay special consideration to. And I'm really quite happy with that. I like that. I like the idea that this league, spell dodge and spell block and chaos resistance are all something that we're much more strongly considering in your training build. So like I had my build planned one way and then, I changed it to get the Templar Chaos Res and I, more highly prioritized getting that spell dodge. And I made sure that I swapped out of Deerstalkers to swap into some spell dodge boots. And like, I feel rewarded for that because like I'm watching people get shredded by the constructs and then I get nailed by a pack of constructs and I'm like, well, I dodged 42% of those shots. It feels pretty good. I really, really like that. I feel like it shakes up gameplay in a way that's not by directly changing skills or ascendancies or things like that. It shakes up gameplay by changing the things that we're actually engaging in the game with. And Path of Exile tends to lose a fair bit of the monsters having an impact on us. I don't know. I feel like it has lost a fair bit of that over time, so getting a little bit of that back is really cool, I think.
Yeah. I think there's one unfair thing that is completely... Well, it's not really unfair, but one thing to note is there's some room layouts where you get put in the middle of the room and there's monsters all around you. I don't know if it's just solo players, but if you're in a group, the way you have to do the incursions is you get everyone in and you have to wait until everyone's in using the grace period. And then the first person who moves gets instantly killed by all the monsters. You just can't avoid it unless like you dodge all of them. And that person was often me. And it was really frustrating. Whenever I got that room, it's just like death. Like you can't kill the monsters either because they have 6-player health. So yeah, please put doors or a ring around the portal thing or something. I don't know.
Perhaps.
It's like good and bad because having the mobs nearby means like your time is easier earlier on, but at the same time, yeah, that's pretty brutal. That sort of thing I think is not good when it's like you get killed on zoning in, that sort of stuff, or like that one map where you'd go in through the door and a bunch of constructs from the boss room would kill you. A bunch of blue constructs would kill you. Same sort of thing. I think that's kind of BS. But the opening up a door and then nailing you, I think that's actually really cool because it's like I set up my traps on the door and I open the door and then I move away, let them fire through and then throw my traps through and take them out. That feels like a bit of gameplay strategy that doesn't happen too often, which I like.
Do you want to hear something really smart? And it actually made someone in my chat lose their shit. So when I was playing Trapper, I had a Tinkerstone that gives you phasing. So I was like, I wonder if I put Frost Wall in my castle damage taken, if that's going to make the Chaos Spitters do nothing. And he's like, why have you got Frost Wall? And I'm like, well, if I get hit, it drops this ward, it blocks all the projectiles, I can just walk through it with phasing. He's like, dude, that's like so high IQ. Like, it literally like blew his mind, that the idea that you could use this random utility spell. But I don't know, I think it's really good, especially since for a while, yourself included, Grim, it's kind of like, dude, PoEs were getting so easy, I kind of want to feel scared again. And then like with Abyss, we were kind of like, I like the Abyss Rise are scary. There were quite a few people who were like, they're too scary, but the general consensus was like, we like the fact that they can kill you. And then with Bestiary, the main thing that people liked about it was like, it felt like you were actually fighting monsters again. So we've kind of been saying to ZiggyD for a while now with the league mechanics, we want like more impactful leagues in terms of like actually just fighting the monsters. So I think it's kind of funny how everyone's like, whoa, these are a bit... we don't like this. We don't like these scary League monsters.
I haven't really heard many people actually complaining about them so much as just noting that they're really scary. I haven't really been seeing people calling for them to be nerfed or anything, which is good. Most people seem to be like, oh shit, those guys are real scary. What can we do to deal with that? Which is great. I like that.
Yeah. There is just one thing. I don't know if ZiggyD is watching, but there's a room that's bugged. That you can't click the time portal in. Like I've gotten it multiple times. It's the same room every time, and you just have to wait for the timer to run out. So I probably want to fix that one. But yeah.
I did have a bug where I left with 30 seconds remaining. It let me wait outside, but I then kept the timer. I just had to wait for 30 seconds before I got my loot explosion. That was very anticlimactic.
That's the reverse problem of what I've had, where I'm like clearing the incursion. I accidentally click on the portal and leave when I've got 2 keys in my inventory. Done that a few times. Damn it.
So,
Unlucky.
On the note of the whole room things, what have been the one rooms which have been consistently like either disappointing or felt really amazing for everyone?
It depends on the tier of content that you're doing. I had 2 plans going into this league. The first one, which is what I've been doing with the Fire Trap build, has been farming Endgame bosses and going for Guardians and Shaper and that sort of thing. And when you're doing T16s, the best 3 rooms that I've found are the map room, hands down. That's just the best room in the whole temple. I actually really like the room that passively gives 5% quantity per tier. With the sheer amount of mobs in a T16 temple, I actually do full clear the ones that I get. That 15% extra quant on top of the higher quant that mobs in the temple seem to already have is really, really good. And it also increases the quantity of items found in boxes, even the like surveyor's study boxes and stuff. So it's really powerful in high tier temples in particular. And the last one is probably the warehouses one, the upgraded one. I think it's Museum of Artifacts. You can get...
That's fun.
You can get anything. You can get absolutely anything. Like people have gotten headhunters, and I mean, you always go to headhunter. That's the item everybody's always chasing. But you know, I got like 5 or 6 interesting league specific items. Like I got a Rigwald's Charge, and I'm considering making a build around that next because I want to use it. I've never had the chance to before. It's just really, really fun. I've kind of lumped in my head. I've lumped the rooms into 2 different categories, like consistent and gambly. And then there's the Museum of Artifacts, which is a consistent gamble. It's awesome. It always gives you something cool, and it can give you something really cool. So it's a gamble where even when you lose, you win.
Yeah, warehouse is always a strong consider for me. Like, unless the thing I have that it's trying to swap out of is really good, I'm usually going straight for that warehouse. Obviously, the obvious ones like Kartos and currency and all that stuff is good. I found like the gem one got pretty useless pretty quickly, but then it gained its usefulness back in your early incursions in late game. Once you get to the point where you've got like 20 level 20 gems, then if you get like you're on your like 8th, 9th, where you're like remaining incursions, so you have a good shot at hitting a tier 3 for that corruption, the double corruption on the gem, because that's actually pretty bloody good. So that regained its
one. I don't know. I don't like that one. I'm not a fan.
The double corruption of gems, hell yeah.
I have a lot of level 19 gems that I'd like to have a word with you. I've always been disappointed when I've used it.
I might be biased because on my first go I hit that 21 Vol arc, so I might be a little biased. It's like a 5x gem right there. I might be a little biased, but it regained its value, but it's still not a high priority, and it's not something I'll pick up later on in the incursions because the quality gems are basically worthless at this point. But to take a more complainy side, I kind of am a bit sad that the ones that give like pack size and quantity and stuff don't do anything at tier 3. I don't know. Like I know some people are clearing the temples in higher tier maps, and like I watched Raiz. He's playing solo self-found. He's about to hit 100, by the way. Good on him. And he's like basically full clearing the temples as well. But I think a lot of the time it doesn't really feel worth exploring the temples and going into each of the rooms unless they're one of those really good ones. And those not having a tier 3, even though I know they give a benefit, the whole point is that like they give pack size or quantity, so they already give you something. But I don't know. I think it's really cool to have some sort of tier 3 thing in each room, and I really like when you get a tier 3 trap room and you like go check out that blue because it could be something really sick that's craftable or something like that. So I love those rewards. It's a shame that some rooms don't have any. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that.
agree with that.
And I play SSF as well, so you get this weird thing of it's like, depending on the tier of the temple itself, with like, oh, this might help me map sustain, so I'll full clear it. But I think especially for like most people doing Trade League, unless you're doing like the tier 16 shenanigans that Octavian and Grimro might be doing, I think for anyone who's kind of like just in middle tier maps, you'll just have hit the tier 3 rooms, maybe do the boss, leave, and that feels a bit, underwhelming.
Yeah, I mentioned that I had 2 strategies and I actually didn't get to the second one. The other one that I was going to do, I've left Shaped Gorge as the only tier 9 on my atlas because it's like the most linear map that I enjoy. And I've got like 40 of them built up now, and my next character is going to be a much faster mapper, and I'm going to just try and target good T3 rooms on the temple and just spam Shaped Gorge for 8 hours a day and see if I can hit warehouses and see if I can hit the tier 3 currency room and the fancy tier 3 rooms that give you a cool blue, that sort of thing, and experiment with hard farming the temple. And those temples I would definitely not full clear. It's really only worth it at like tier 16, maybe 15. But then it's very, very worth it, I've found.
Yeah, I think you can have a problem. Like, okay, so it's week 1, so we don't really know exactly how everything's
That's
going to
true.
settle in, right? But
That's true.
I will say what I've found at least is, compared to other kind of leagues, like I've tried selling shaped maps. No one wants to buy them because they're just so easy to sustain right now because of the temple, of course. So you can't sell the shaped maps. So the only map I've been able to sell really right now is like the completion maps, which everyone will get done eventually, and Guardian maps. And I've talked to quite a few people, including you, Octavian, and a lot of people are saying they're sustaining Guardian maps.
Yep.
So if all the bosses are sustaining them, who's gonna buy them, right? And we're just gonna have Harbinger all over again, where Guardian maps are 10 chaos. So while the map room's cool, is it good for the game? If you want to do the shaper and all that stuff and you're a casual player, then yeah, probably. But if you're a bosser, you're probably going to see Dying Sun hit that 2 exalt low possibly again. So I'm not sure.
See,
I
that
don't know
I
if I see
find...
it as a bad thing so much.
Yeah.
Like, map trading's kind of boring, and having access to difficult content to practice you and your character without needing to outlay a bunch of currency to do so is, I think,
Oh yeah.
overall
I
seems
guess
like a better thing for the game.
for me at least, like I mean, I went into this league with the strategy of farming Guardian maps like I normally do. And I just found it was kind of it wasn't as good as we normally do. So I'm actually doing white maps now to get as many temples as fast as possible.
How's that worked out for you?
Yeah, well, I don't know, it's a little bit lopsided because the incursions, they are pretty much a breach straight up. The way it works is all the monsters in there have a breach like quantity modifier on them, so they've got like what 500% quant or something silly on them, and then your magic find multiplies that. So when you get out, you literally have your whole screen as items. So the incursions are actually far more rewarding than the actual temple themselves. So yeah, it's kind of weird, but yeah, it's whatever.
Before we get into that, I just want to like stay on the higher map tier thing a little bit because I feel like there's a very big disparity in views here. So one of the things that people liked the most about Harvey was having the access to that higher content, and like the main thing people in chat saying, "Oh, it sounds so elitist. You don't want me to have access." And
It's not that.
it's very difficult, like picking that sweet spot. And PoE's gone through like so many different ways. Like old PoE was like, you would sink 10 exalts to try and maybe just sustain the highest tier of mapping you had then. And now it's like impossible really to run out of maps. And in your guys' opinion, just from like all the time you've played PoE, what is your personal preferred model when it comes to accessibility of the highest tiers?
While there's like a certain nostalgia to like exalting your maps, that's crazy, no one will do that now, and remembering back to people doing that, the game was like, the end game was kind of fucking boring back then because most people weren't doing that. Most people, like, that was a crazy premise to most people then even. So people were just, whatever, depending on which time period you look at, they were either like farming Fell Shrine or some boring shit like that. So I really liked, mapping in Harbinger because, you just felt like you could really go ham on such a good variety of maps. So also the currency helped that a lot as well. But yeah, I like the map access. I think it's the way to go. Feels good.
I really enjoyed actually. I don't know if Harbinger is quite what I would say is the like ideal spot for map sustain to be in. It maybe devalued high tier maps a little bit too much in my opinion, but I definitely don't want to go back to the days of 3 or 4 Reddit posts in the front page of how do I sustain red maps every single day. Like I actually quite like where we are right now. We'll have to wait and see how the league shakes out. But it seems like if you invest and you take the time to, run your temples occasionally, and you take the time to throw sack frags in or chisels or some form of investment, you don't need to invest everything in your maps, but you have to have like sextants or sack frags or something. Then you can pretty easily sustain without having to worry about it too much. You don't have to go bother trading with other people. But it still does cost a bit to get into the maps, and it still does cost a bit to, actually get to the end game, which in my opinion gives the end game a bit more weight. I don't want like 40 Chaos Guardian maps, but I do want like 10 Chaos, 12 Chaos Guardian maps, like at some actual cost of entry, because it keeps some of the it keeps a reason to do bosses. It keeps a reason to do something like Shaper, because otherwise it's not too exciting to farm Shaper when you only get the Dying Sun maybe 1 out of every 8 runs, 1 out of every 12 runs, depending on how lucky you are, and it's worth 2x, which you could have made 10 times that by just farming, I don't know, Shaped Gorge or Shaped Underground Sea or something.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at the lifespan of the game and all that stuff as well, and player retention, it's like they complain about trading speeding up the game, but they're speeding it up themselves, right? By allowing people to like sustain Guardian maps and climb faster and all that stuff, it's making each league shorter. But yeah, I mean, if people want to play the content, I mean, that's like fine, But it's making the game faster.
Yeah, because I think I lean more towards Grim's point of view. It's worrying that if every league is like this, then when do we say, okay, stop? Because, we do keep getting faster and faster progression. I mean, Grim got a day 3 headhunter doing Chaos Recipe, for fuck's sake. Like, that's the point
The team got it, not me.
Sorry,
the team.
The team got a day 3 headhunter doing Chaos Recipe. But I think a big point of it will kind of come down to, do we feel like players should have to trade to sustain maps? And I think that's, like, the main topic. Like, do we feel like if you map all day, every day, should you be able to stay in that tier of maps without having to buy more?
You could already do that if you knew what you were doing and you invested, so it's not like a big change, but it's just making it so you don't have to buy like sextants and stuff, right? You don't have to spend like 6 chaos on red sextants. Like sextants right now, like the red sextants, I don't know about you, Octavian, but they're like 3 chaos. That's like mind-blowing to me. I don't know why they're so low. Obviously because they drop in the temple and you don't need them anymore to sustain guardians, but yeah, it's pretty insane.
Yeah,
I think that like buying a few maps that are missing off your atlas is enough. I think like that's enough of a thing for us to have to do in terms of trading maps. Like, I don't have these maps around my atlas that I just didn't get to drop, so buying those should be all of the map trading we have to do, apart from like, maybe buying some tier 16s. I think that's fine, but yeah, I wouldn't want to be having to buy bundles of tier 12s, every second day. That's ugh.
Do you think they should add something in the game to like allow you to like pick a map and like do a quest like on Zana or something to get it? Kind of like, I don't know.
Like
Make it
Zana
standard.
Daily has like a deterministic reward behind it.
Like maybe
something?
Zana gives you maps that you haven't completed yet or something off her daily. I don't know. Maybe that'll probably help a lot of people out.
It'd be really
I like
nice
that
for
idea.
SSF. That's one of the really annoying things about Atlas progression and SSF. There are like 3 or 4 random maps which you can't trade up and into. And so if you don't know, if anyone in chat, if you have 3 of one map, you can trade up to the tier higher. And there are just some maps where it's like you just have to pray that it either drops or Zana sells it to you, or you need to try and like Varl into it. And it's really annoying. If those 3 maps didn't exist, or 4, whatever it is, the mapping system would feel so much better. But that one change would help that a lot.
Yeah, and if you do want to unlock your atlas like Solo Self-Found style, you need to really slow down your atlas progression to do it consistently, to not miss maps. Where you like, you do all of one tier until you've unlocked all of the next tier, and then you move on to the next one. Otherwise, you end up missing maps, and then they can't drop from anything else, and you end up screwing the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
I had that
kind of
for a really long time. I couldn't go into tier 7s because I was missing 1 6, and I was just like stockpiling 7s, and I want to go into 7s. Like, oh, you're missing this one though. It's like...
One thing I like to do when I'm running up against that I did solo cell phone for the first time back in Flashback Race, actually. And I was doing exactly that strategy of, running all the T6s until I got a copy of each 7. And I actually would like run my favorite of the next tier to have that completed. So I'd either drop that T7 or the one next to the map I'm trying to do. So once I get to the next tier, I get a nice treat of being able to run like 10 copies of the map I really like. So like,
I like that.
every tier I would be able to then stop and farm for a little bit and progress my build and that sort of thing.
So backtrack away from SF Atlas progression. When it comes to Incursion versus Temple, and does it feel rewarding? So one of the big complaints that I've heard from both Grimro and Octavian is that the boss itself feels like the fight is too easy or not rewarding enough, and that the architects feel like they don't really give enough. Like, how do we feel about that and the fact of like you get this tier 3 room, you go in, you kill the boss, and then it drops like a wisdom scroll, and then you're like, that was fun.
Since you said Grim's and Octavian's opinions are that, I feel like I'm obligated to offer some additional insight, but unfortunately I'm playing a trapper and I insta-phase both phases on the boss. So I have no idea how difficult the boss fight is. I don't know half the mechanics it does. I've like seen some people, where they're playing melee and you just like when it's on top of them, they insta kill the player. I'm like, well, that looks really scary, but I have no idea what that is because I have no idea what the mechanics are. So yeah, I can't really comment
the
on
weird
that one.
chaos wave thing I saw once on my first character. Then for Blade Vortex, insta phase it both times, insta phase on Trapper, and I'm insta phasing it on Vol Blight. So it's just like, yeah, it's probably a little too easy if Blight is like destroying the boss.
Don't knock Blight. Come on.
I went in there with a 6-man group, and that was pretty fun because obviously it's got juiced up HP, and the mechanics are really cool. Like the wave one is definitely the most fun. It's a little bit BS, but having to dodge around and all that kind of stuff, it's really, really fun. They did a really good job of the mechanics. It just doesn't have any life, which is a big mistake in my opinion. Like it's really weird that they undertuned it so hard. But yeah, the mechanics are spot on. Like they've got a lot of cool ones, like flamethrowers coming in the arena and stuff like that. Like beams that go around the room. Like it's really cool. But yeah, they need to increase the life and the rewards. The rewards are really bad.
Or, I mean, one way they could go about doing that is by making it so that more of the rooms and the rooms that already have effects affecting the boss could just have those effects tuned up, to 11. So the one that gives, I think Workshop is it, that gives the boss life, or the pack size ones, pack size or quant, that could give like 20% more life per stage or something. Because the amount of life it has right now, it could very easily get that and still be doable for most builds. And the one that adds minions could add whole swarms of minions rather than like 6, that sort of thing. Just make it feel like there's more of an impact to the choices of the rooms that you pick, more than just the loot in them. It's actually something.
I think what they should have done, just building on what you're saying there, is each of the, what are they called? The Omnitech improvement rooms should have a treasure key style thing, like from Izaro, and then behind the boss there should be treasure boxes, like from the storage room, and you can get stuff. Because honestly, like if you don't get the Vial of the Ghost or Sacrifice, it's useless, right? Or you get a lucky Vial, like you don't get anything from him. Like it's most of the time you want to skip him.
In poor old Omnitech's defense, I really like the fact that he drops the rares with the Incursion mods on it. I think that's really a really fun way to do boss loot, and I would like to see more of that in PoE. But you are right, like because all of the uniques are really niche. Some of them are good, but they're just really niche, which means they're not going to have much value since they're easy to get. Like targetable niche items are always valueless, pretty much. So I like that idea of warehouse chest finder. Yeah, that would make it feel worth going and doing him.
Yeah,
just 3 random warehouse chests, could be anything from the temple. Love it.
MP had a pretty cool idea in chat. He said, what if when you kill the architects, it buffs the boss in a way, so it like encourages people to actually like kill all the rooms? That'd be kind of cool. I also, I agree with you quite a lot, Ziggy. So like the way I started this league was I skipped all incursions until level 12 on my first character, and then I power farmed incursion for like 3 fucking hours in Shit Graveyard Cave. And the idea was that's just the right level to maybe get a Poet's Pen drop. So of course, everyone in my chat who did that, they got Poet's Pens, I got none. But that felt really rewarding because I was getting loads of the super cool rares early on, and from a leveling point of view, it felt great. I was like, wow, this feels so impactful. I'm getting all these cool rares. But the second you get to endgame and you're getting like a random staff with +2 trap gems, it's like
staves. Oh my
Yeah,
god! Why
this-
is there so many staves? I
does
swear, I don't
nothing
know if
for
it's
me.
confirmation bias or
Mm.
what, but I feel like it's always a staff. I feel like everything is always on staves. I don't know, man. I'm always seeing staves. It's frustrating me because they're so useless. Oh,
No, I don't think it's confirmation bias. I think you're right.
Yeah,
GGG
that's-
wants to like push more power into staves, but they're going about it like entirely the wrong way. You know, the
I think,
problem
like-
isn't that you're lacking damage with a staff option, though that can be a problem with some builds. The problem is that you're lacking the ability to play it and have it feel good. Like you don't have a good movement option. That's the biggest block.
Are you trying to tell me that you don't want a 15% minion duration staff? Is that what you're trying to tell me right now?
I
That
might
feels
want
amazing.
that. I do. I want to be able to use that Tarke, but I can't because it's trash.
One thing
I
I
don't think
will
that's
say
the
though,
only problem staves
one thing I
have.
will say, Phase Run got crazy buffed.
True. Yes.
They halved the cast time from 0.5
like
to 0.25. It feels a lot better now. But
Yeah, I use it on my trapper. It's really nice.
it's even with that, it's still like it needs more. And even
Oh, I
ignoring
don't think it needs more.
Really?
No. I don't think it would. I was talking to my friend today. We're gonna do an Aberrath auto bomber build with phase run, and you can go so fast,
Oh no,
dude.
I didn't mean like phase run. I meant like
Same.
staffs need more. Like
Oh,
outside
okay, I thought you
of
were
just
talking about
phase run.
phase run.
No, phase run's OP. I used phase run on my KB miner, and that was the only way I could play that build to 100. Was like phase run felt so good, and that was before they buffed it. Anyone playing Trade League with phase run, the most important link is enhance. People seem to forget that enhance exists. It gives a bunch of extra movement speed. So like your 3 link should be like phase run enhance if you're a caster, arcane surge if you're not a caster, faster casting. You don't really need increased duration. That should be like your last link.
Though duration stacking and blade vortex and phase run is a really interesting combo, and it's what I'm going to build my next build around. Because blade vortex only needs 10 stacks now. That means each individual stack is much more powerful, and they hit faster. So you should, if you can stack enough duration, be able to stack up to like 5 to 10 blade vortex stacks, hit phase run, and if you stack a ton of movement speed too, just rush through the whole map or half the map before having to restack, and you only have to actually use your ability maybe once or twice in a map. It's awesome.
I don't know if you've seen the links that people are running, but even with Ellie Overload, so you have way less damage, we're using stuff like increased duration and efficacy in our 6 link. So yeah, people are going full in on that meme.
Yeah, I think just going back to the temple real quick. I heard Chris Wilson call them drawback rooms, like the plant room and just the trap room and stuff like that. Those need to be, I think, looked at a little bit more because they're like, at least in Trade League, there's just no reason to even upgrade them, look at them, or even do anything with them. And a lot of the time, the drawbacks they put in there, like especially the traps for me because I suck at traps. Oh my god, they're just so bad. Like they could make them interesting in some way, I think. But we'll have to see. But yeah, what do you guys reckon?
I do really like getting the craftable blue item. It just would feel a lot better if it wasn't staves 75% of the time. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I think like I was actually disappointed when I got a unique out of one of those rooms. I was like, oh, I really wanted, a trap dagger. Instead, I got a freaking unique. I don't want.
With the blue item,
Yeah,
you'd have to regal it and then like multi-mod it, right? That's for most players, that's pretty out of reach, right?
I don't know. Like one of my ones I got was the boots I'm using right now, which it was the 30 move speed, 12 spell dodge. Augment life. I augmented life, regaled a good resist, mastercraft another resist. Boots done. Don't really need to do anything else for that. And those are legit boots. Like it's really good this league.
A lot of the individual mods are powerful enough that like a half decent Aug Regal can be enough to get you a good enough item. I mean, it's not going to be like your end game perfect item unless you go with the master crafting route and multi-modding and that sort of thing potentially. But if you're looking at it from the average player's point of view, an Aug Regal is a really cheap way to get to use that super powerful role and then maybe get like 40 life and a res or something.
Yeah, I think for a lot of players, like a powerful mod plus Aug Regal Mastercraft produces a pretty usable item. So it scales well. Like, yeah, you can do the multi-modding, but usable items from just that process is pretty usable by the majority of the players, I think.
Yeah.
On the topic of rooms that affect the whole temple, though, I really want to see more rooms like the Shrine of Empowerment that make placement of where the room is in the temple very important.
Cool.
Maybe if they want to add more of those rooms, give us an option to have a little bit of agency over where rooms might be placed or what where the incursions might go in terms of rooms, so you can have a little more control over where some of these important placements rooms might be. But it would be so cool if it felt more like I was building an interconnected temple, and that was like its own whole really I don't know, well laid out adventure, rather than a bunch of disconnected rooms that all just are loot boxes or empty. And don't get me wrong, I love Incursion, but I think just adding that one extra layer of depth wouldn't add too much complexity, and it would make for so much more longevity to the mechanic.
Yeah. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of Battle Royale. Like, the league is great. Everyone loves it. It's beautiful. But we all got a few things that we think could make it better. And I think if they had just iterated on it one more time, and we can see like some improvements, it's going to be like the best league ever, hands down.
Yeah.
The fact that it's modular gives me some pretty good hope that they could, if they really like it, add some more stuff to it down the track.
It honestly feels like an expansion, Ziggy. You're entirely right. Did you, like, when you were talking to Chris, like, did he seem like you wanted to add a core? Because it seems like something that you would add core instantly, but it seems like something you'd add, like it's like War for the Atlas kind of thing, like as part of the main game.
Their approach is always like, we'll see if the community likes it before they decide on that. But I think, yeah, sometimes they're like, yeah, this feasibly could be a part of the core game or feasibly not. And I think with like the effort they put in this one, and that was like that, what they called like a tier 4 league, or this was an expansion sized league. I think they're pretty open to the idea of it going core. No firm statement though.
Before we move on, and I agree, I really do like Incursion. I hope it sticks around long term. There's one thing which I think is a bit weird about it, and you touched on this a little bit, Ziggy, about the fact that there are niche targetable items. They have a very weird place in Trade League. They also have a very weird place in SSF, because once you have the unique once, you never need it again, because you have one of it. Like, you're not getting multiples to sell, so you have this weird thing where it's like you'll chain target farm like tier 3 trap room, for example, until you get the unique. And once you've got that once in SSF, unless you're trying to VAR them, you never need to that room ever again. And then in a Trade League scenario, then I don't know, what you done?
I really thought that the vials to upgrade them would drop in the rooms.
Yeah.
But it turns out they're just random drops from the boss. That doesn't make any sense to me, because that would mean that you have a reason to keep going for them. It's like, yeah, now I have the item, it's good, but I want to upgrade it. Keep going. Like, yeah, I thought that would have been the thing, but apparently not. Mine was blown when it was just a random drop off the boss.
To be fair, though, that that doesn't so much solve the issue that Tarke is pointing out, is just push the ceiling higher. I mean, that might solve the issue, depending on how rare the vials are. If it takes you like half a league to get one, then at that point you might be burned out in the league already, and you don't want to keep going anyways. But if
this is targetable compared to now.
Yeah, true. No, I think it would be an improvement. But if it actually is a problem that, you know, a room just becomes ignorable after you get your one-time reward out of it, they could make it so that, you know, rooms have... Basically, I'm just going to keep going back to this. I really want rooms to have further ramifications throughout the temple. You know, I want... When I'm making a decision between two rooms, I want that decision to affect more than just that one room more often. There's a few rooms that do that. There's, you know, the rooms with negative drawbacks, you could argue they do, the ones that give you minus max, but that's not that interactive. It just makes the temple a bit harder. Like, I want something that, you know, if it's next to X room, it gets Y benefit. I don't know. I've been trying to come up with a bunch of examples, but haven't gotten anything that I feel really concretely is awesome yet.
It's a cool idea.
Or even going back to the
come up with how that would work.
The older idea of just you get an extra key and that opens another chest at the end. Like, even that would make it feel like worthwhile a bit. Because yeah, I had this situation of, so for my Val Blight character, I want to use the new shield, which gives you bleed immune and poison immunity. And I have the base shield from the poison room. So now I'm just running the boss until I eventually randomly get the upgrade vial, and then that's it. I never need to do that ever again. And yeah, exactly. It's annoying. I've already got 4 of the upgrade vials, and it's just like, give me it for that one item. But yeah. Also one final thing I did want to touch on briefly. So I know Grim feels a bit like disappointed that we only have like 2 chase uniques this time round in the like upgraded flask and the upgraded amulet. Then the rest are all mostly niche. Do you guys generally prefer leagues to be like very impactful chase items, or all power, or all niche? Like, what's kind of the sweet spot?
I think having a few like poster child uniques and a few niche ones is the way to go about it. Maybe we needed more chase uniques than just the flask and the amulet, because I think maybe 1 or 2. Basically, I think the problem actually is a step below. The problem isn't that the chase uniques aren't good, the ones that we have, and isn't that we don't have a few at least, but it's that there aren't other reasons to also do the boss, so it feels like you're only going after those 2 chase uniques if you're killing the boss. So we're just kind of back to the boss not being very rewarding again. I think that's where the problem is here, not necessarily a lack of interesting uniques this league. I think a lot of them are pretty neat, both the niche ones and just the super powerful ones like the flask.
Really? I don't know. Like when you look at Abyss and Breach, I don't know. Like you got Shroud, Bubonic, Light Poacher, Attune Fist. I think actually every Abyss unique was like badass, right? In Breach, most of them are badass as well. Like all the amulets were good. Like and each Breach Lord dropped at least 1 good item, apart from the amulet. So I don't know. It was just when I was looking at them, I was like, hey, come on, man, is that all we got? So I don't know, that's what I felt.
I can see that, yeah.
But if you look at the system of like delivery though, so like yeah, Abyss had very powerful items, but there weren't that many items, and they were all a little bit boring. Like Light Poacher was impactful, like you felt it, you equipped it, you felt it. Shroud of the Lightless, it's a very powerful item, but it's a very passive item. You don't really build around it. It might just be like in the case of Octavian, you might be doing a multi-element build, so it's a different option. But there's no real kind of like, oh, I've equipped the Shroud and I feel powerful. Bubonics, they kind of had a cool effect. Some people did build around them a little bit. But they were kind of boring in a way. And
I don't know.
with
boring, nice.
With the Incursion system, there are actually a lot of very powerful items in there, but they are borderline niche. So for example, the shield I'm talking about, that has 50% faster start of energy shield recovery, which is huge for anyone doing like regen-based tank killer. So like Waggle last league was like farming Uber Elder and a Scorched Ray Cultist. And that's a very niche build. That's like, yeah, it's really good for that one build and is insane for that one build. Some of the new jewels are pretty powerful in the right scenarios, but it's much more kind of like, oh, how do I think about making this okay for my one niche build, rather than, you know, here's something ridiculously OP. Even like the Zoff's Ami, like to go for like the cool chase uniques from Breach, none of them you really built around. They were just like very powerful. So I think I actually prefer the current system where you kind of have to think about how to apply the power. I don't know.
I think like the uniques maybe aren't quite there. I do agree with you, Tarke, though, that like having them be more interesting uniques is better overall. Like I prefer uniques typically to be that way. I guess the other consideration though is that the temple, whereas like a breach was kind of all or nothing, like maybe you get drops from the mobs, but you either got one of the chase uniques or you didn't. Whereas the temple has a lot of other interesting shit going on that it gives you. You know, you might get a really good vaults and get an exalt from it, or you might get, you know, something wacky from the warehouse, or, you know, one of the craftable items that you're pretty excited about, or something else cool. So there's a lot else going on there.
Yeah. Wait, I want to say it right now. If they made one of the rooms with like a quantity blue item on it, I would have eaten my shoe. And if they added, I'll still eat my shoe, dude. Because that would have got me super duper hyped. I would have got like all kinds of excited. But they didn't do it, so whatever.
I'm curious about this. What if they made a mod which was like 10 quant minus 30 chaos res? And I would love to see a Grim wearing the full set, like, these fucking chaos spitters do too much damage with this like minus 3000% chaos res.
Is there like a floor to how low your resistances can go? Can they go below minus 60?
There's not much. There's not much that can push it down there. There's like maybe a half dozen items in the game that give penalties. The new chess piece does, right? That gives significant penalties per corrupted item, like -6 elemental resistances or something. So
minus 100 can happen apparently. I have minus
Maybe
74 chaos strands due to Oscomp. Cool.
maybe there's a build somewhere that like converts damage types and specifically takes a lot of fire damage, converting it all to something else in order to activate some cast when damage taken or some interesting effect. That would be neat.
To be honest, I think
Interesting.
that'd be a much cooler way of doing quantity and stuff going forward if they tied it to some kind of like screw you. Because like the main isn't the main problem with quantity builds kind of like how are you going to cap your res when you're using like these 30 different like items altogether?
Yeah, you need to get it from the tree, but I think quantity, it just needs to go. Like, I mean, I like it because it's there, and I wish there was different ways to get it apart from just wear 10 uniques, but the whole system is just, it's a dumpster fire. I reckon they should get rid of quantity and roll it into a game mechanic which allows you to increase the difficulty of maps instead of just putting all this gear, right? And then everyone gets it instead of just some guy stacking MF.
Yeah, it's a bit outdated at this point.
Mhm.
So what you're saying is, Grim, is we need to remove all MF from the game and add it as a store feature, yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
as a store feature.
Yeah,
Yeah, pay to
okay.
win, please.
Per cosmetic 1.
If you set off fireworks in your map, it's 20% extra quantity per firework
Yeah,
explosion.
yeah.
Oh, that sounds good. That sounds good. Okay.
boy.
So going into the
Yikes.
skill reworks then. So you touched a little bit on Rain of Arrows and stuff. What have been the new skills that we've all like really liked and been kind of disappointed about this time around?
I like Blade Vortex. It's very good. I'm just using it on a full link, and it just absolutely just obliterates everything. And Rain of Arrows, yeah, it was pretty good. Val Rain of Arrows felt pretty nice on bosses. The area feels fantastic on it. It just feels like a lot of your arrows just don't hit monsters, which is kind of a bit unfortunate. If more of them hit monsters, I think it'd be a lot better. But yeah, I mean, it's still very good in my opinion.
I thought Valorant of Arrows was kind of boring. I was a bit
Oh yeah.
disappointed by Valorant of Arrows just being like, it's Rain of Arrows times 3. I don't know if that's a slowing effect, the meme, but yeah.
I mean, it's not like cool. It's not like flashy, but like when you get to the boss and you go bang bang both on your stacks and you have like just a million arrows just all smashing the boss, it's pretty fun.
That does sound cool. I actually haven't seen that yet. I'm actually really excited. One of my viewers had a good idea for a build, so I'm going to steal it. It's with the Empire's Grasp and Ground Slam. So Ground Slam has 50% more damage if enemies are close to you. So you pull enemies next to you in order to activate that damage buff. And then Vol Ground Slam, even though it's not that flashy compared to some of the other Vol skills, Vol Ground Slam is actually like really good, and you get 3 charges of it. And it apparently, I've not tested it myself, but according to my one viewer who has been playing this build, it apparently will inherit Ruthless stacks. So if you time it right, you can get that 3rd damage proc and get a bunch of extra damage on the Vol Ground Slam. I want to test it myself before I know that for certain, but I don't know, maybe I can crowdsource that. Maybe your Twitch chat can do it for me, do the testing.
I would be very wary of one person in chat told me something. I've done a few
Yeah,
builds.
that's why I have the
chat.
disclaimer.
Yeah.
That's why I have the very lengthy disclaimer in front of that.
I guess. Did you want to go Tarke?
Yeah, I guess I could just say I've been really enjoying. The only one thing I felt a little bit iffy about with the reworks is it feels like some of the Vol lockouts are a little too punishing. It seems like some skills feel really good. Like Vol Fireball, it feels like you're always pressing it. It's got such a short cooldown. Vol Blight, for example, it feels amazing when I press it, but it's got like a longer lockout than Vol Blade Vortex. And that seems a bit weird to me. The fact that, you know, you have Vol Blade Vortex, which basically like doubles Blade Vortex single target, is huge for map clear. And then I'm just like, yo, I've got to wait an extra 3 seconds because Vol Blight is too strong. Also, I briefly tried out Vol Grace on one of my characters, and that's got a really long lockout on it as well. So I feel like there's still some tuning that could be done to like normalize some of the stuff. But otherwise, I think it's pretty good.
I think like Val Haste and Val Grace and stuff is forgivable with it having a very long lockout, because you can tell that they clearly didn't want everyone just using that, wanted to actually try and work in other Val skills, which I really like. I don't know if I'm like super disappointed by anything. Some of the stuff's like, you know, not seemingly amazing, and like people keep mentioning Power Siphon in chat. It's just like the new Power Siphon is an improvement. It's just not as good as Kinetic Blast, so that's not exactly
I tried
fair.
Power Siphon, Val Power Siphon. It's not great. Let's be honest. KB just smashes it.
I mean, it was never going to be good. Like that was the thing, which I don't know what people thought it was going to be. Like, they said they were going to rework it. I'm like, yeah, it might be okay, but it's not going to be KB. Like, no, Tarke is going to be the best thing. It's got additional projectiles. I'm like, yeah, but it's not kinetic. Like, oh, it's going to be so...
They're never going to make the second coming of KB. It's too powerful. They want to bring... They've said in the skill releases, they said they want to rebalance wand skills to be more equivalent. Like, they want to bring down KB, I'm assuming, unless wanders are just going to have like 4 incredibly OP tools at their disposal.
Yeah, they literally said in reference to Power Siphon and Kinetic Blast, this is not enough. We don't feel like this is enough. It's just like, this is what we have for now. It's not enough though.
You can look at Kinetic Blast and everyone's like, oh, broken. And it is in certain maps, but like if you've tried to play Kinetic Blast and kill a boss like on like dunes.
Knock back.
Yeah, I know. Even with
Lightning Warp. Actually, they got rid of that.
Like,
it's gone now.
It doesn't do single target very well. But yeah, if you've got a wall, I think if you fix the wall problem, it's like fair, right? It's like the wall thing. Just to kind of build out, like, sorry, when you said Vol Fireball was good, I was like, that's so hilarious because I watched Q-Dog struggle with that for days. Oh man,
well, no, but
it's
like,
a little bit rough.
Okay, so this is the thing, right? So like when I say Vol Power Siphon, it feels good. Like you press it a lot. Like, you get to press it more than most other Vol skills. But, like, this is basically Cute Dog, right? So he's like, okay, so I'm comparing this current build to, like, one of the most broken builds that's ever existed. Fully geared, headhunter, everything, let's go. Then trying to leak... Like, of course it's not as fucking good. It'd be like if you had...
Cute Dog was never going to be happy with
Exactly, it's like if you had someone who drove Ferraris their entire life, right? And then you gave them, like, a classic Jaguar or something. They'd be like, oh, you know, it's a bit, it breaks down every now and again. It's not that great, you know.
But I don't know. He got the flask, and I was like, oh, here we go. Let's see it. Let's see how good it is, and it just still sucked. I was like, I think the flask could have been a little. They could have done better with the flask. I think. Like, if you're gonna make it this chase item, make it good, right? Like at the moment, it's kind of like, what are you gonna use it for? Auras and maybe Val Molten Shell or something. But like with actual Val, yeah, okay.
As far as the skill reworks go, though, I am surprised I've not seen... Maybe a lot of people who aren't streaming are playing them, but I've not seen too many Ignite Prolif builds being played by a lot of higher-level players and stuff. Like, I've seen some people experimenting with them. Flame Blast is the one that I think I've seen the most success from a few people. But I personally want to give Burning Arrow a try. It was the first thing that I wanted to play this next league. Is it not good? Have you given it a shot?
Okay, so... Vol Flame Blast is amazing. So Vol Flame Blast is instant 15 stacks. So that's really good for either just like a pure hit build or an ignite build. And it's like the highest ignite you can get. You just do like a 4 or 5 link fireball for clear on your ignite Prolif build, and then use Vol Flame Blast one shot every boss. And if you're playing a Burning Arrow ignite build, your tree looks exactly like a Fireball Flame Blast ignite build. So why not just do Fireball, Ignite, and Flame Blast to one-shot all the bosses?
Is Vol Burning Arrows not any good, though? I like the idea of shooting like a massive explosion like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's like... the thing which makes that good is doing AoE overlap and like link it with GMP, then doing big initial hit. So it's a bit at odds with itself. But Raiz was doing Ignite before he got his Impulsor drop, and that felt pretty good. I know that Demi is doing Ignite. I briefly... So before I went Blade Vortex, I actually had a bit of an identity crisis, and I accidentally played like 8 different builds. So I was leveling with the new Magma Orb, because they made the visuals on it a lot better. New Magma Orb's actually playable. It doesn't give me migraines anymore, so that was nice. And then at one point I thought, oh, let's just try Fireball to see if that's better. Fireball is better. That wasn't very surprising. And then I was like, let's just try Arc for one zone, see if that feels better. Yeah, it does. And then I was like, oh, let's try Blade Vortex. And I didn't have any decks on my character, so I could only use a requires level 40 Blade Vortex while I was farming Blood Aqueduct, and it was better than Arc. So I then took my like level 10 Blade Vortex to kill Acting Katava and SSF, and was like, yeah, I'm probably going to do a Blade Vortex build now. But, yeah.
Yeah, I think... Personally, like if you're asking me, oh, I want to do an Ignite Prolif build, you do Val Molten Shell, right? I had this idea when I saw the Ignite React, but Ziz got to it before me. It's like, oh, god damn it. And he's doing it on SSF. But yeah, you get the Flask, and you can just shield charge around everywhere, Scalds, and just blow up everything. It looks pretty good.
I don't think I ever expected you to say that a Val Molten Shell build would look good, Grim.
Oh, do you know what it is?
I do. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
It's
I
just
mean,
it's
like,
not.
like a,
It's been a little difficult to use in past.
I mean, it
Oh,
was
wait,
like the
what?
best build at one point. Like it was really good.
you
Yeah,
strap on a
alright.
Scald and you're a rocket
One
ship,
point
dude.
being
Oh.
when.
VMS
I need some
was...
PoE history lessons. I
Okay,
started
so
playing in
VMS
warbands.
was absolutely broken for about 2 patches before Ascendancy, and then during Perendus it was like the go-to build because you then
I
had
actually skipped
accessibility to Scald. So that was like, it was a really good standard build because you could only get the items you needed in standard. Then we had Perendus, everyone could get access to the Scalds, and you could do like dual consuming dark, old Elementalist where all of your damage ignited, convert everything to poison as well. Like it was ridiculous. That was my
Yeah.
first... I took that build to like 94 in Perendus, and that was like my highest level character for a long time, and every build after felt shit in comparison to how broken old VMS was.
I'd like
I
to
think
pause
it's-
just briefly to give a shout out to my boy Raiz QT, just hit level 100 in Soul
Like-
Self on Hardcore. Good job, buddy. I've had his stream up on second monitor. I just
Are we
see
gonna
two
get him
cans. Well, so
Get
many
him in for a live
toucans.
review.
His live
I
review
think
is,
it's
I'm going to
half
sleep, go away. That's his live review.
I asked him if he'd come on Baeclast after he was done or something. He's like, yeah, no, I'm so dead.
It was yesterday, he was like,
He's been struggling.
Tarke, I think I might be able to hit 100 just before, and I'll be there. I'm like, you're not going to. He's like, yeah, no, I can do it. And then I was talking today, and I'm like, so you're going to do it? He's like, nah, I'm going to bed. This is too much. I'm done.
You'd literally be sleepy, just sleep cam in the corner. Raiz sleeping on the podcast.
Yeah.
Good on him. He's pushed hard for it. It's been rough for him. I know he really wanted to play one particular build using Stormfire unique ring. Just couldn't get it. So he's had a bit of a rough time. He's been a bit saltier than usual even.
Actually, I have a question for you, Ziggy. I know this isn't really to do with the Incursion, but it's lately about GGG. They seem to be pushing their kind of content creation, kind of like support and all that stuff, events, stuff like that. Is this something that GGG is kind of moving towards in the future? Do they really want to make like an online presence for PoE?
How do you mean exactly?
So like, I guess we had the Tencent Invitational race. We obviously had the like at this time we had the advertisement for the loot boxes and stuff like that. That was pretty cool. Like the perks and stuff like that really helped a lot of people see what they were about and all that kind of good stuff. I mean, kind of more like events, right?
So I know that's something that they've been have been pretty interested in doing for quite a long time, and even at one point they were like, we're going to make an official GGG stream and do a bunch of stuff on that, invite content creators to come on and do stuff and do interviews and things like that. But I think like they've struggled with how to actually do this stuff, and it's very difficult later on to like make a stream like that happen. So the official PoE stream didn't end up taking off. But I know that's something they've been exploring, and I talk to Bex every now and then about it, and she's often like, you know, asking for advice on just like the thing, like streaming, basically, like how streaming works and stuff like that. So I think they are trying to learn quite a bit about how to do that more. I really hope that we get more event stuff though. Like Chris, when he told me about the idea for ExileCon, which I didn't realize they'd announced so soon. When he told me about it, it sounded like it was way off, but then like they announced it after I got back. That was crazy. He was super excited about that.
Yeah.
He's super excited, and he was like, you know, rambling to me about like all the things they could do, like having race events there and inviting different streamers out to come around and doing some sort of like, you know, invitational thing, just like all these ideas being thrown around. So yeah, I think they're pretty excited about trying to do stuff like that. I think they've just struggled with how to actually do that. What's the best approach for them? How do they do that and make it impactful, that sort of thing? I hope we see more of that. That Tencent thing was awesome. I really, really enjoyed commentating that. Would love to see more of it.
It sounds
I know
promising.
Tencent's real big on that sort of event / competition-y sort of stuff. So I don't know if they have any influence on GGG, then that would be really good influence to have. If we get a bit more of that sort of stuff. Maybe funding is what ends up helping that stuff happen, potentially.
I can't
so.
say anything like event-wise, but I can like pretty much guarantee that I think they're going to be doing a lot better just with actual outreach style stuff, like, you know, having Chris on Baeclast and whatever. Like, I've been nagging Bex for months about like coming on, and each like week it's less like, oh, but I don't really know how about we're gonna do this, and much more about like, yeah, we need to do this on this day at this time. And I think they've definitely been doing a good job of just like coming out of their shell a bit, because obviously one of the big things with that is it's like, in much the same way as we had this with like Baeclast, it's one thing to like, oh, we've got this really cool idea, let's do this, and then the first time you do it, like there's such a big difference. Then once you've gotten over the initial hurdle, like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool, and you expect to only see more. So just like, even with this small thing of like doing the loot box giveaway to more than just like 2 streamers, just small things like that, expect to see like more direct stuff.
Just to speak to my own experiences on that, like I have seen them already kind of change quite a bit about how like comfortable they are with doing this sort of stuff. So when I did my first trip to New Zealand to visit GGG and record content and stuff there, it took me literally saying, I'm coming to New Zealand on these dates. I'm going to be near you. Let me to the office. We'll record some content. I'll sign whatever NDA you need me to sign. It'll be really fun. I really look forward to it. Can we make this happen? And it took me basically doing that to get in there. And then, over time, it's like, Ziggy, we've got a thing coming on, and we like doing this stuff, so come on out. So like that's changed a lot, I think. And like the first time I went in, it was like the first thing was like push into the office and like, hurry, quick, sign this NDA before you see anything. And now it's like much more chill, they're much more comfortable, I think, reaching out to people. And like you said, they've been doing stuff, even just like, it's kind of a silly example, I guess, but even like the loot box thing, reaching out to more people to get them to do stuff, just send them some loot boxes just open. So stuff like that. Hope to see a lot more.
Yeah. Right. Well, to move on from that, have there been any particular like items this league which have been MVPs for you, be it new or old, which are like, this has really come in? I know you have one you want to talk about, Octavian. Go for it.
Malachi's Awakening is dumb. It has like, I think it's like 80 average damage or so. It's variable, really variable depending on the rolls, but you can get like 3-4 times the amount of average damage added to spells as you can get from a 2-socket light poacher out of it. And the blood magic as well is actually a boon for a lot of trap builds, because something like hatred or anger can be really nice, but the helmet will give you more damage than one of those auras will, and then give you license to print traps forever. And that plus Shroud of the Lightless for some all-pen and 200% effectiveness on Fire Trap is basically my whole build this league. And it was pretty strong last league as well. Something like Volatile Dead has, 120, 130% effectiveness. It would probably have worked pretty well with it as well. Blood Magic isn't too bad to go on some Volatile Dead builds. You could potentially do that. But I think it's just such a perfect fit for Fire Trap and Arc Trap as well that it really should see a lot more love this league. I wouldn't be surprised if it starts to become a bit more meta.
Yeah, me and Red Eye would talk about that item when we were talking about like how to make trap builds. So it's the problem of like, let's plan my SSF build around this prophecy upgrade. Yay!
That requires a T13 boss kill to be able to acquire.
I hear Law Wave's pretty good.
Really?
I think,
really?
Yeah, that was a real underrated item, I'm pretty sure, but seems like it's even better this league. I'm obviously kidding, just in case anyone thinks I'm being serious. But that setting your resist thing seems pretty good when we're doing minus max temples all the time.
Actually, talking about max res, On's Heritage and Sappho's Frame are both in a really good spot right now. I think On's Heritage is a little better for most builds because it has 100-ish life on it if you count the implicit. But Sappho's Frame gives you 1 more max res, and if you don't care about block, if you're not like doing any block investment at all, it's the downside that basically doesn't exist. Especially if you're going like acro phase acro.
That's one thing which has been quite interesting. So kind of watching how like the SSF meta for the last few leagues has shifted. So like one of the main like things people put on their filters, if you watch like Raiz or Uber stream, like when an Arn's Heritage or a Sappho's drop or like a Lightning Cold, it's like, yes, PogChamp, let's go. And it's all these like 1C, 1-alch items. It's like one of the biggest things in SSF, if you can get it early for nearly any build, is like the double fragility jewel, Anne's Heritage, and Wormsign Gloves, because that's like Onslaught, Rampage, Max Res. You would be shocked how bloody rare Bisco's Leash is. Like, Bisco's Leech is like the amazing like budget headhunter. That belt just doesn't want to bloody drop in SSF.
I think my
Yeah, I thought it
MVP
was pretty
for me
close.
this league has been spell dodge, phase acro. I feel like 50% of people who went acrobatics in the past would not get phase acro. I was always, a fan of the phase acro action, but particularly MVP this league seems to have really shut up in value. Oh, we already talked about it a fair bit. Those chaos constructs being one reason in particular.
Oh yeah.
Dude, Ziggy, at some point, try using Kong Mings. I've been talking about that item so much this league. So Kong's Ming, it's the 30%
No.
reduced spell damage shield, and you can corrupt them for really nice implicits.
No,
It's,
Tarke,
it's
no.
so it
Chat
feels
was
good.
trying to sell me on
Actually,
Chat was trying to sell me on the Kong Mings, and here's the problem, right? So you're not near the chaos constructs when they try to kill you. 95% of the time, you're not actually near them, so you're not
You're just not
blinding
shield
them
charging
with your
fast
AoE
enough.
blind.
That's the problem, Ziggy. You just got to shield charge, got to face touch every pack. Every
See-
pack. Boom.
So this is your safety net for when you're being an idiot. Okay, I gotcha.
that's why it works so well for Tarke. But on the topic of Kongsmings having really good corruptions, it's not actually a specific unique or anything, but I've put and this probably isn't good for like heavy magic finding, but for solo play with no quant gear, I've put studded belts and cloth belts and power amulets and coral amulets back on my filter because some of the amulet and belt corruptions are just crazy. I've like sold a belt for an X that was a pretty good cloth belt that corrupted into like crit strike chance during flask effect, or a lot of all res, or an amulet that got hatred aura effect. Like you can get some very powerful effects that even if they're just on an okay amulet otherwise can be really good.
Yes,
Yeah.
seriously, like corruptions, there are basically no bad ones now.
I like how
There are
while
some
we're
that,
talking
like-
about our shitty cloth belts, Grim's like, I've got an attack speed onslaught on kill Brightbeat.
I have a +2
No,
trap
it's-
gem Shroud of the Lightless now. Got that
it's
yesterday.
attack speed increase AoE, but yeah, exactly. Nah, the corruptions are one of the best things they've added to the game in so long. Like the new corruptions are a reason to keep playing for like long-term players, right? So I don't know.
Yeah,
If,
the
are we talking
long-term
about the
chase
corruptions
of
or-
Temple is going to be double corruptions above all else.
Yeah.
I think that'll be the thing that keeps people going in month 2 on.
Mhm.
One thing I'm
Yeah.
curious about, before we get into it, Grim, we'll go all about like if we think it's too broken or not. Ziggy and Octavian, and Grim not so much because I know you don't stream too much. How have you managed to handle the influx of shitty, corrupted items you've been linked this league? Because like every
I love
league
them.
you get linked, like, oh, have you seen my item? I had a breakdown on stream the other day. I just had to say, look, chat, to be perfectly honest, I don't care. I honestly don't care about your item. I play SSF. It's great. You've got an item with a corruption on it. Stop linking them.
That's neat.
Dude,
is my go-to.
No way. I love it. I love it. Usually it's like, Ziggy, can you price check this generic rare number 7,892? I'm like, yep, that's another life 3 resistance amulet right there. Yep, that's really interesting. Thanks. Now I'm like getting linked to all these sorts of crazy shit. I still don't price check any of them, but man, I love it. And it's also entertaining when it's like so garbage as well. And like the person's really proud of it, and I'm like, oh, I feel so bad when I tell them that seems really bad, dude. That's really bad.
Let them down
Because
gently.
not a good item, and that's not a good pair of
You
corruption.
gotta let them down gently.
The best
Yeah.
example of that was, the Belt of Servitude's got the triple corruption on it. The amount of people who got very excited linking me their 24% increased energy shield belts, and I'm just like, bated breath?
Yeah.
Yeah, that belt's like maybe a little disappointing. It's like
Okay.
there's a couple cases where it makes a bit of sense, but for the most part, it doesn't really seem to win out over other options you have either in uniques or in terms of just rare, in terms of the power you can get from them. Like obviously, like duration and stuff can have some applications, but I think for the most part, that belt is disappointing beyond leveling.
It's what, like, crit multi, attack speed, duration, and then all res for leveling? Have I missed any other good ones?
Yeah, move speed, attack speed, or res, those are good for leveling and potentially for endgame clearing. Your attack speed or your move speed is good. You can't normally get that on a belt slot, obviously.
I think that belt is very good. I'll get into it when we get to the double corruptions, but I think it's actually very unique and it's very good. So yeah.
Go on, Grim. Let's do double corruptions. Go on. Tell us about this amazing belt we're all
Tell
sleeping
me
on.
about the belt. Yeah, tell me now. I
Okay,
want
well,
some backup for that. Like beyond the ones we mentioned. What makes it really good?
The belt is, I mean, it's not interesting for maybe you guys, but like it's interesting for aura users, like aura mancers and stuff like that. You can get like 60% increased wrath effectiveness combined with the fact that you can get like +4 auras, and then you can get that on a shield with like +2 auras. I think my support was telling me he's going to get a 31 wrath with generosity, with the belt, with all the other corruptions, and it's like, whoa. And you can just scale another person's character to so high proportions, it's ridiculous. So
Yeah.
60% aura.
For Auramancers, I can see that. That sounds pretty good. Pretty useless
good
time
run.
else, though.
Super scaling
sure.
niche stats like that is always neat. Like even if it's not useful for most players, I really like the fact that the weirdness of that belt exists in the game, because maybe there is a build that wants 25% skill effect duration on the belt slot, or wants just as much possible AoE as they can get out of every single item slot, and goes for like 50% or however much you can get on the belt.
It's cool for silly min-maxing. Agreed.
And it's not like it's going to be really difficult to obtain. It's a little depressing seeing another item that 500 other copies of already dropped from the boss. But then we're back to the topic from an hour ago of the boss not dropping good enough stuff.
Yeah, I think I'm going to open up a different can of worms here,
Go
but
for it,
I think
go.
every time we talk about like these OP items, oh look how crazy it is. It's like we never get a chance to really use these items, right? They just need to add something which is infinite scaling and reward or something like that, don't you reckon?
Oh god.
Endless ledge.
Yeah, I don't know.
Ancient uniques.
Yeah.
Well, you mean infinite
Ancient
scaling?
uniques.
You mean infinite scaling in terms of content, like in terms of challenge to put your build up against, not in terms of items. So not like infinitely scaling items, not headhunter plus, but like
no, yeah,
a
not
level
plus,
110 zone or something to. Because at this point, there's enough damage in the game. You can scale your build to 10 million shaper DPS, and nothing has that much health.
I would actually love to see like a unique map that was, started at tier 16 and just went up through the tiers to item level 100. Kind of like Ober's Curse Trove, that one that goes up through levels already, but this stops. Something like that just kept going on. Go as far as you can. That
just
would be
something so you
dope.
can take it, test it out or something like that. Some reason to actually get this gear. But yeah, if you want to talk about double corruptions, I'm so keen.
Go.
All right. Well, I think it's good for the game to begin with, obviously, because it does give you more chase items. I think the main issue with it though is, I mean, if you get like this sick rare or a shape item or like a stat stick or whatever you've got, you don't want to corrupt that, right? Like, because you only have one, you can't get another one very easily. So it kind of means the only thing you're really corrupting is uniques a lot of the time.
But the other thing is,
if that was true, people wouldn't be constantly losing the item they're using. The reality is that people are corrupting their solo self found my 1/6 link impulses, so I better double corrupt it.
Yeah, but that's a unique again though, right? Like that can be replaced.
But like those irreplaceable items, it's always there in the back of your mind that pair of like life tri-res throw an additional trap gloves or something could also have Ellie weakness on hit. And that would be amazing. Or could also have like +2 trap gems, +2 something else, and throw a 4-link in there and it destroys everything. Like
turn this irreplaceable.
You can go so far.
Legendary.
You can go so far down that rabbit hole, and I love it. Like it actually makes me want to stick with this build for like a month, and I'm usually jumping around from build to build.
Now,
I don't know.
Let me know what you think about this, because the main reason why I've always one of the main reasons I've always preferred hardcore over softcore when it comes to Trade League is the fact that the market doesn't get flooded with gear because we die and gear naturally leaves. Doesn't this like double corruption thing, isn't this a huge like buff to the longevity of softcore Trade League because it gives you another like sink of items to come out?
Yeah.
Always good.
Go ahead. I don't know. For certain items, yes. For certain other items, no. Like, there's still going to be a million gold rooms and all that kind of stuff. But, like, for an item like Windripper or something like that, there's going to be, like I was looking at Rigwald's quills. All of them are corrupted. Like, you can't buy an uncorrupted one.
But, I mean, you can get a +1 arrow, +1 chain Wigwald's quills. Of course they're all corrupted. That's a possibility. How do you not go for that? You'd have to be a soulless, like, computer of a human being to not put that on your altar.
I think what it's actually doing is actually the reverse. It's making all the most expensive items even more expensive, and like the the lower tier ones, like I mean, there's just gonna stay at the same price because there's so many of them. So I mean, if you're trying to build like a top tier character, it's gonna be even harder now, right? Because everyone's just trying to corrupt all of the items. They're just taken out of the economy because they get destroyed.
I mean, isn't that a good thing though? People keep bitching they haven't got chase items, so now you've got chase items. Doesn't that solve the problem?
I mean, it's
That
not a
all
problem
kind
for
of
me.
balances out in a way because then when you get one of those items to drop for you, it's worth more. And on the flip side, you can buy corrupted items usually cheaper as like a cheap stepping stone as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as long as the power level that you achieve through the double corruptions is like the excessive power level that is not needed for any content in the game, like there are plenty of builds that can do everything in the game without needing a single like super double corrupted item. The double corrupted items are the icing on the cake, you know? Your build should be a very well-baked cake before you go for any of the icing first. Like, don't think your build is like bad because you don't have +2 trap gems, +2 AoE chest piece or something.
Tasty though. Icing's tasty.
You know,
I
it's
know,
really
that's kinda why I-
depressing. I'm at the age now where I prefer the cake to the icing.
I do as well.
Mm.
That's
We're
kind
the
of why I
mature
mentioned what
ones, Tarke.
for like you get like these you get a sick corruption, right? And you're already doing shape, you're doing overload and all that kind of stuff, right? And you've got it on farm and it's so easy, and then you get a sick corruption. It's like, what's the point, right? I'm already doing everything hard in the game. Like, I'm just gonna do it faster now, right?
Well, that leads back to what
So-
you were saying earlier about like an endless ledge mode. You know, something to
Say that again.
actually put these super items up against and see how far they can go before they fall.
I guess the problem is we've seen a certain example of that not do so hot. So I guess we're gonna maybe they'll come up with something cooler. We'll have to see.
I mean, the temple could be repurposed towards that to some degree. If you made
Yeah,
some
right.
of the rooms
Endless
like,
temple.
well, maybe not an endless, but you know, you make some of the rooms a lot harder. You make some of the rooms you can opt into like much more difficult. So, you know, there's rooms that don't come up very often, but they give really high rewards and they make the temple much harder overall. Or that one specific room, like the Itziri fight, just has Itziri in it. You know, they could make some other bosses that just show up in the temple and are, you know, a lot less common. So new players maybe don't run into them a bunch and kill themselves and wonder why, you know, that there's this just
Wonder
impassable
why they
brick
can't
wall.
get back through the door. Oh, that was hilarious. Did you see that rip? That was a good one. I liked that.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I agree with you.
Yeah, circling back to double corruptions, I guess. So, like, I mean, is that going to keep you playing, like, guys? Are you going to be like, oh, I'm going to keep playing until I get this +4 chest or something like that?
I mean, I've deleted 5 Shrouds of the Lightless from the game so far, and I've gotten +2 trap, +2 curse Shroud of the Lightless. So I still need to go for the +2 trap, +2 duration, or +2 fire or something.
One thing I will say, which is a good thing about the double corruptions, which no one's really mentioned yet, is we've had this really long history with PoE. Yes, I know our unique's better, our rare's better. But one of the things that I really enjoy about PoE is the build making. And there are a lot of like kind of niche unique items which are nearly good enough to use. And the double corruptions makes those valuable, you know. So it's kind of one of those things of, will I use this item over the perfect Elder Shaper item? Probably not. But, you know, I can double corrupt this, like, you know, 1C. The Rimnoir's Helm, which gives you fire damage, and you cannot be frozen if using a fast forward thing. That was, like, the perfect example. You would double corrupt that every time over, like, you know, a 7-link Elder Shaper Helm. And if you hit that helm good, you'll actually use that in a lot of cases. So I think it does a very good job of making a lot of the like middle ground uniques which haven't been buffed or brought up yet, makes them attractive. The chase uniques still have a value, as you say, when it's like, you know, all the Wriggles calls are corrupted. So it brings the bottom up a bit. You still have this top end, and then you still have these, you know, 9-link Elder Helms. If you want to go for the crazy like +4, you know, burning damage, Ellie Focus, Essence Crafted Helm, you can for that, you know, 1 crafter in, you know, standard or whatever.
Yeah, I think I'll just add one more thing here to this. I think the problem is like if you get like a Piscator's, right, it's already a really good wand. It's probably one of the best. And then I can get 100 Piscators versus 1 mirror wand, right? And I can vol all of them, and if one of them hits well, it'll be almost as good as the mirror wand or better. And like, isn't that a problem? Like, aren't the best items in the game meant to be rares?
But that's already a
I mean-
problem, though. Like, Piscator is already better than so many wands, and as you said yourself, it doesn't fucking matter what wand you're using. Use your white wand to still clear all the content you're currently doing. So, like, this is the thing, right? So, like, we're in this weird fallacy, and this is why it goes back to something like, dude, just drop some points, get phase acro on the tree. We're in this weird bubble where people, like, they're looking at their path of building, you know, and touching all their friends about who's got the higher number. But meanwhile, it's like, if you had 1/8 of that number and just got a bit more attack speed on the tree, you'd do what you're doing better. So let us use more rando, you know, trashy uniques. Let us use more whatever. And there will be that one kid who comes home every day, farms up his full tabula set, then double corrupts his tabula, cries for a bit, then goes back to Blood Aqueducts the next day after school. So, you know, I think it's kind of cool. I don't know.
The floor
That's pretty good.
for what's like usable has definitely been pulled up a bunch. And I guess the ceiling hasn't gone that much higher. I don't know. The double corrupt, it's always kind of been the case that the mirror tier item is like you can get 80%, 85% of what a mirror tier item does for 1/100th of the cost. It's just Path of Exile, by the time you get up to the highest tier stuff in terms of building your character, it's always paying massive amounts for much smaller increments of power because it's just that much harder to get the 6th affix than it is the 5th. And now we have just another step, you know, instead of 1 corruption, you can get 2. And I think that's fine, so long as each individual step gets more and more difficult, so that power is locked behind more and more investment in terms of time spent, because otherwise you hit the ceiling too quickly and the game feels flat.
Also, Grim, just one thing. We, even without double corrupting exist, until they fix quantity, it doesn't matter. Because you're going to be using your vendor's rings over the best mirror ring. You're going to use your Windripper over the best mirror bow. You're going to be using your Sedemas over the best mirror gloves. Like, do you kind of get what I'm saying? So we already have that issue with quantity gear for someone like you who likes a full min-max on returns. So, because if I was like, hey, Grim, do you want the best mirror bow in the game or a Windripper? You'll be like, I'll take the Windripper for the quantity. Yeah, but do you want the best ring in the game or a Ventors? You'll be like, well, actually, I'll have a white pariah, but, you know, I'll take that then. You know, so we're kind of already at that point.
Feels bad, man. I think what's really cool, though, is
Go
new
ahead.
players. Like, I bought, like, I think my Brightbeak of someone who, like, is just new, right? They can be in, like, mud flats and corrupt a unique, and then it's worth, like, 2 exalts. That's so cool. I really think that's really nice.
Yep.
So, good new player experience.
Yeah,
I
no,
have to say though, my
Go ahead, Ziggy. No,
I was
you.
Gonna say, no, you. I'm gonna have to say my favorite thing though. No.
Go on, Ziggy, go on.
Okay. I think my favorite thing though, it's funny because the thing I have to say is of very low value. My favorite thing though is when you use a Varlorb and your item gets bricked, it's dead anyway, right? You just vendor it. It's worthless when it rerolls 9 times out of 10. But in this case, they went the extra step to make the item disappear in a little puff of red dust.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's so good. That's so good. Such a little touch, but I feel like it adds a lot to the experience.
Oh, yeah.
I've watched countless videos posted on Reddit now. People like little puff item disappears.
Never gets old when it's happening to someone else.
It's like, yes. And I crack up every time. Gets me every time. It's all good.
Okay, but before we move into the Atlas side of things, is there anything else people want to touch on when it comes to skills or items?
I think, like, overall, I feel like GG kind of fucking nailed it with this expansion as well. We let us swear on this podcast.
No, no, definitely not. This is a very PG friendly. You can swear you on, but no, they absolutely destroyed it. Yeah.
Like so I think this league is going to be very fondly remembered. Like the allure will wear off over time, as it always does. And people forget that it did in Breach too. People fucking got pretty sick of Breach by the end of Breach. But like over time, people will remember this very fondly if it's not, moving to the core game. And it's got that balance of being a really good league on top of like some mega positive movements in terms of skill gems. So like so many skill gems fixed or improved or buffed, and then mechanics like the Val mechanic, I think, is Val skill mechanics going to play out really nicely. So all this stuff comes together. It's going to make a really nice league. And I feel like more and more we have the most playable variety in builds. Like everyone right now is playing Arc, yeah, sure, or Blade Vortex or whatever. But we really do have the most variety of playable stuff right now, and like good playable stuff that's actually fun to play, which is fucking awesome.
I just really hope they can stick on the same schedule as well. Like the fact that they were so prepared for the league.
Same.
Like I think the biggest testament of that was the fact that you went over when you did and it kind of worked. There are some game crash stuff which we can talk about later, but like it's pretty smooth though. And I remember the league is pretty smooth. There's the game crash stuff, but every league is game crashes. Like as far as any leagues go, this is the most polished it's ever been. And I remember just before the league launched, I was trying to like bully Bex onto coming onto Baeclast, and I was like, "Oh, how's the team feeling?" Because it was like the day before the launch, and she said, "Actually, everyone is quite calmly optimistic, and that's a really good sign when it's that rather than no one slept for 8 months and we're still trying to decide whether or not Nets should work with 2 health left or 20." So I'm hoping they can keep this train going forward every league. That'd be really nice.
Once you get ahead, if you keep up the same work, though, you can stay ahead and keep rolling that forward. So hopefully they are able to keep rolling that forwards. And if they're hiring on another additional 20 staff, then also hopefully that helps soon as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be real good.
Okay, well, since we've just been very nice, Grim, let's talk about game crashes and game performance. Dead game.
Okay. Well, I think at the moment, like tonight even, the game was like it's pretty much unplayable on anything but predictive right now. If you play lockstep, you just lock up and lag constantly. So that's new for me. At least I'm playing in a 2-man group, so it shouldn't be too bad. It's not crazy or anything. So I don't know if that's the servers or whatever. And buffer underflow, whatever that is, getting that quite a lot every single map. So yeah, that's not great. And sometimes the game just deletes itself and crashes.
Deletes itself?
Yeah, just completely just crashes.
You have to reinstall?
Well, no, it doesn't delete. It just closes the window completely. Like no bug report or anything. It just closes.
It literally sets my house on fire. Wait, does it really? Well, no, it just closes. But,
I lost my wife.
Yeah, dude.
My wife left me when PoE crashed.
Yikes.
They're not related. It's not related instances, but I just need a scapegoat.
Yeah, definitely some improvement to be had there.
Do you think this is a server thing? Because I know some servers have been having issues. I haven't personally had any more issues this league than normal.
Oh, really? Well, I'm on the same server as you.
I had to jump around from gateway to gateway for a little bit. I had a Hydra map that I'd be able to kill like 2 or 3 packs in, and then the game would crash, and I wouldn't be able to go back to my hideout unless I changed gateway. So I ended up playing on like the Frankfurt gateway from here in like I'm on the east coast of the US. So
Milan,
that was fun.
Heads up, Milan is like the MVP safety net. If you're at EU or US, Milan is like a secret safe space. Moscow's also pretty reliable. But I've had a few like weird crashes. So I was expecting, so I played Blade Vortex to 90, and I was expecting to get a lot of crashes, Blade Vortex, Triple Herald, whatever. There seems to be this thing quite consistently when you drop Vald Blade Vortex in a big enough pack, it's like, it's just going to kick you straight out.
Really?
But I've had more just like random crashes to nothing. Like I'm in an empty hallway crash than I have most leagues. And there was that at the very start of the league, people thought maybe one of the new Nemesis mods was causing a particular crash, but I don't know. All of my crashes have been quite safe. Like I haven't died to any crashes, so in that case, this league's been fine. I know Uber had a terrible. Uber basically stopped racing because he had so many crashes and just deaths to crashes. But there's always the one thing with PoE, and Chris even touched on this a little bit on the Baeclast he's on. It's like at one point you turn off a random setting, and then everything works, and then you never want to touch your settings again. So if you have random issues, try turning DX 9, 10, 37 on off, post pressing on off, volume up down slightly.
Not post processing, Raiz. I dare say it won't help.
One thing, if you're crashing and you have 2 monitors, just try playing PoE on the other monitor, see if that helps.
Really?
Open, close a window. Pee-wee's like a really weird mystical creature. Like genuinely, it's kind of like I feel like if I move my lamp around my room, that affects my game performance slightly.
Tarke,
Also, don't forget to
I-
like clear the dust out of your dust filters on your PC. You know,
I nearly started a
blow
house
the
fire
cartridge on your
yesterday.
Xbox.
Fun fact. So
That's not very fun.
no, so I was streaming and my monitors were randomly turning on and off, like completely on and off. And I'm like, maybe it's a power surge or something. And chat's like, no, it's the graphics card, it's the display port, and I look, and my power strip was physically sparking. And I'm like, guys, I think it might be the power strip. Like, no, it's definitely the graphics card. It's probably a display port issue. So I sorted the power strip out and I was okay. But I think it's safe to say that the Vol rework literally set my house on fire. So that's definitely the issue.
Oh god.
So Atlas discussion. Grim and Octavian, you doing anything particularly fancy with Atlas this league?
Go ahead, Grim.
Oh, I want to talk about the Elder first. Hang on a second, because there was some information that was withheld by Mr. Chris Wilson here. I went for the Elder Orb. 2 attempts, no 15th memory fragment. Turns out you have to save Shaper, and it doesn't say that anywhere on the quest, and he didn't mention that. So
Wait, you don't save Shaper?
You have to be a good guy.
On T15 on 6 or 16, it's like, it's kind of Monka S on the first few days, so let him die, but apparently that's not going to fly.
Frostwall, by the way, just bringing that bad boy up. Frostwall the Shaper.
100%. So yeah, save Shaper. That's the main thing there. Very important.
As
Yeah, I
far
don't know.
as,
What about you?
as far as your Atlas strategy, see, I came on Baeclast just so I could delve into Grim's secrets here. I want to start making the same sort of bad cash.
Quantity
if I-
items.
Oh well, whatever. I'll tell everyone what I'm doing now. Okay. Whatever.
I got it out of him.
Yeah. What's the map called? It's called City Square. Yeah. I'm doing white city squares because it drops the new divination card for essences.
3 voices.
You get 3 voices, and you get like 4 a map or something, and they
Mhm.
drop tons in the incursions. So you can like get like the corrupted essences like Hysteria and Insanity and stuff like that. And you can make like tons of money that way.
Yeah.
City Square. If you corrupt the map, it drops sack frags, which I sell a lot to Mr. Octavian over it. 1 chaos each. So yeah, I've been making quite a bit of money off that, and
Wait,
it's
what
pretty
now?
good.
One,
the sack
the 3 voices card drops in any map with the triple boss. So since he's
Mm.
corrupting them all, the triple boss drops a lot of frags. But
Nice.
speaking of div cards that drop in maps that are new, the Faded Connections div card that gives you a guaranteed 6-link prophecy, that drops from the Carcass boss, and I've run maybe 25, 30 Carcass maps, and I've gotten 2, and it's a set of 6. So I've gotten a third of a 6-link from, not too many maps. I might just be obscenely lucky. I have a very small sample size. But it could be that Carcass, it's kind of hard to shape your Atlas around a T15, a
Oh,
natural
God.
T15. But it could be that when you get Carcasses, it's worth running Carcass, and maybe worth running it twinned, because it only drops from the boss.
Careful, viewers
Really?
don't. No, nobody understands sample size. Everyone's gonna be like, oh,
I
God.
could be very lucky. I have gotten, I've played the game for a long time. It's very
You could be
likely that
unlucky.
true. I could also be very unlucky. Maybe it drops every other map. That's probably not the case.
I was told that dropped from Vault, honestly, that card. So maybe they were
From
wrong.
vaults, I've not run too many vaults. Vaults. We don't talk about vault anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
GGG, they buried that 20 feet under.
I think it's interesting, like, because incursions, the way they're structured is you actually don't get really much reward for running them in high tier maps, apart from obviously more maps, which we touched on earlier may not retain value. So, like, to be honest, there's not really much benefit in doing harder content this league too much, which is a little bit interesting. So you get you get the T3 corruption room from white maps as well as T16, right? So it's the same
Mhm.
corruption room, it's no different. Same with the unique, same with the vial of the ghost and all that thing. I'm pretty sure they drop from white maps as well. So,
Would you like to see more reward in the higher tiers now that you've played the league?
yes, I would.
In terms of what, Mr. Yes answer?
Well, obviously maps are nice, but I don't know, maybe like, how the cat was only an 80 plus and some certain beasts were only an 80 plus, maybe like stick a special room in 80 plus or something. I don't know. maybe quantity bonus on the temple or something, or maybe you get like some extra chests at the end for 84. I don't know, just something, right? We
I
should
think.
incentivize.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You finish your thought.
No, I'm done.
I think GGG's like intended solution to that was the blue items that you get to drop and the rares from the boss, because obviously those bases are much more valuable when they're at high eye levels. But there's such a gamble, you know, as far as making an actually highly valuable item worth the effort of farming high tier content. It's not going to happen very often. You're very rarely going to get the T3 room that you're specifically targeting anyway. You know, like you were targeting T3 trap rooms for a little while, right, Tarke? How often did you actually get one in your temple?
One in probably like 5 or something.
Yeah. So like T16 maps are very possible to sustain now, but there's still something of an investment, and to sustain them you need to keep investing in them. So you're putting all that currency and time in, and you get it 1 in 5 times, and then it drops, you know, a staff with 60% or 90% trap damage that isn't useful at all. So like that definitely isn't enough to tempt me into farming temples at high tiers. Right now I'm farming them at high tiers in order to get maps, but if maps do end up dropping to like 5C for a Guardian or something, probably gonna go to like, you know, Shaped Gorge or maybe City Square or maybe Race Course or something.
No, my strategy.
Race Course is pretty good too, triple boss, and so you get the 3 voices. It's a nice layout, less density though.
Yeah.
I was actually pretty disappointed to learn off Rory though that the rares that the Omnitech dropped are completely random. I really thought they were linked to the rooms so that you had some control over that. And like looking at it, I think that would be a lot better and would help a bit with our complaints about the boss's loot. If you could, like, you know, by getting a trap room, you get a trap rare off the boss. Obviously, there's still a fair bit of RNG to rares, but you know, that's having that sort of determinism would be really cool, I think.
You would have really enjoyed my day 1 stream, Ziggy. So, you know how I told you I did 3 hours of farming at level 12 to try and cheat some Perks pens? Now, I wanted to play Scorching Ray, so I was trying to get a good, like, fire-based weapon, but I was using Freeze Pulse early on. And I swear to God, every single Omnitech I did gave me a cold item. And my chat was like, maybe it's because you're damaging with cold damage. So it's like, it picks like the most threshold of damage taken and then tries to like select the appropriate gear for you. And I'm like, wow, that's such a smart system, GGG. That's genius. That way you're not going to get bad things. This is so cool. And we're trying to like experiment with hitting it with different elements. It's like, no, it's just random. It's just a random system. I was like, oh, okay. Let me delete
I was
my...
also a bit...
Yeah.
Well, on the same topic, I was also a bit disappointed, like DXA Demon in chat brings it up, that I really thought that the things that impact the boss and make the boss more difficult, like they just give you a thing at tier 3. I thought they would also, or do something else specifically, I thought they would also buff the loot of the boss. I'm kind of disappointed that it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, like augments the Omnitech with fire, why doesn't you drop a bunch of extra loot for that? Or, you know, drop a specific fire item or something.
Like,
I'm kind of
in your
disappointed by
videos,
that. That could be improved.
Ziggy, I remember going over your video like frame by frame trying to figure everything out.
Love that.
And I was convinced, like, because you said that like the temple was going to be very rewarding, and like the temple boss was going to be very rewarding. And I was getting hyped up. I was like, oh, we're gonna get some fat loot at the end here. And then it's like, well, what the hell's this? Where's my loot, right? I mean, was it like, did something change? Were they like, because he said he wanted to nerf the loot in there. Do you reckon they just took it away all off the boss?
Well, I never saw the boss when I was there.
Yeah.
I didn't get any spoilers when I was there, so I don't know I didn't know anything about the boss or what loot it was going to drop, apart from what they told me and what was in the videos.
There seems to be something of an aversion to like farming that's too deterministic from GGG's standpoint, and I can understand that. Like for a game like Path of Exile, it needs the sort of longevity of chasing for various different items, and so if you can really easily target whatever it is you want, it makes it just less of a fun experience, honestly. Like if you get what you want too easily, I know everybody wants the item now all the time now, but if you get what you want too easily, then there's not that much reason to keep playing. So it's a really difficult balance to strike, and we've seen it before with like almost every league mechanic has some way of deterministically farming for something, and it's just about striking that balance differently each time. Like divination cards, that's not a league mechanic, but divination cards do that, essences do that, bestiary did that. Like everything is about the balance of RNG versus determinism in how you're farming what you're farming. So it's not too unreasonable to like assume that there was some level of deterministic farming as attached to the boss. I don't know. I actually was convinced there was, but I've heard it straight from GGG themselves, so I guess not.
So
I just kept getting mana on everything that would drop from the boss.
Yeah.
So I was like, I kept
Yeah.
prioritizing the quantity and pack size rooms because I wanted more maps. So I was like, maybe one of those is related to mana somehow. It doesn't make sense thematically, but hey.
This
no.
is how rarity affects, rarity of currency memes are made. It's this random thing. If you have a kind of like misty system we can't quite get through, so you just make up random shit to try and sort the narrative. But so it seems pretty safe to say then, after we spent about 2 hours talking about it, we all really like Incursion, but wish that we had just more agency over the boss drops. And that's just the one thing which really needs improving.
And it is really important. It's part of why the temple is quite well liked, I think, as well. It's because we actually do feel like we have some agency over the temple. Although, like, it's still pretty much random, like what rooms you're getting and whether you're going to have the opportunity to upgrade them into certain things. But because you're making a choice each time, it makes if you get a garbage result in the end, you felt like, well, maybe I didn't make the best choices. But when you get a really good one, you're like, yeah, I did good. I think that helps the mechanic a lot. So improving that aspect of it, I think, is only going to be even better. Hopefully they do.
One thing I'm actually really curious about, and I don't know if you've tested this, have you heard the theory that incursions don't generate the loot till afterwards, so that you can equip all your MF gear right before the timer turns off? I was watching Uber's stream and he was talking about this.
Oh, God.
I mean, I don't know if that's true, but I wouldn't do that anyway. That's not fun, right? Even
I
wouldn't do that.
How do you test that?
It would be
Gear
like just
swapping,
equipping a
lol.
Biscos or something. Or like, are there any weapons which give quantity or rarity or anything that you could weapon
There's-
swap to?
If that was the
Centauri's-
case, Biscos wouldn't even apply. Right?
Centauri's
So,
answer.
like,
The shield gives some quant.
Yeah, no, Ziggy's right. It has to be when you kill a monster that's how MF works. Like, if you read how it works, like when the person wearing the MF kills a monster, it's applied.
Yeah,
So-
kill attribution is really important for MF. And actually also the proximity of nearby players. I did some testing with my MF party a few leagues ago, and what we did is we ran Breach Lord domains, and we had the MF build clear it by themselves with 5 people hanging back far away, and then everybody together clearing it. And we counted wisdom scrolls from each run, and you get like 5 times the wisdom scrolls if you have everyone on the same screen all the time. So proximity of players does actually affect quantity, like in the same way that it affects XP sharing. So, like, how would that
Makes sense.
factor into incursions?
Yeah. What I can tell you is a few things. Biscos is extremely overpowered with incursions because all of the main monsters are blue and white, and they all have a massive MF modifier on them, and then that gets times again by Biscos. Increased item rarity is pretty damn broken as well because it drops you like 2 tabulas or something stupid. And with impulses being like 1.8 exalts, you're going to get a lot more of those. And Val wins is absolutely disgusting. Because of the amount of items that drop, you can get Val wins in there and then go in there, kill everything, and then like 10 6-links drop at the end. It's just stupid.
One last thing, Double Beyond.
Yeah,
Double
we did
Beyond
Double Beyond
is
as well, yeah.
is absurd with incursions because it spawns so many rares and magic mobs that, like you said, get multiplied by the incursion modifiers. Like, I've been playing non-MF this league, and Double Beyond incursions will drop like 5 or 6 uniques every time.
Oh yeah. Yep. Very good.
One fun thing that I tried doing a little bit. So you know how they buffed the Val side zone significantly, which is a huge, like, amazing change, by the way. And I think Grimro might have seen some of this. So someone in my chat was like, Tarke, I know how to farm 6 links in SSF. I'm like, oh, what do you do? It's like, just do side Val zones. So I did 50 Val frags, and you can sustain them quite easily now. Because, you get quite a lot of them dropping off the end. It's also a good way of making Val orbs in SSF, because 7 Val gems and 1 frag. And during that time, I got 1 6-link, that was 1 divine. He apparently got like 90,000. So, if Jim wants to, he's got a bit of an open weekend.
Sounds about right.
Just farm, Jim, if you're watching, farm 1,000 Val side areas and how many 6-links you get. Yeah.
I think, just from my experience running Val wins, they're not that common. Like, they're fairly rare. Like, you can kill a whole double beyonded map and get 1. So they're not common at all. So Yeah. Probably not the best way to get a 6-link. And most of the time they are swords and bows and staves. Yeah.
Always back to stabs. Stay.
How about this though? What if they made a new vendor recipe? If you vendor 5 stars, it gives you a one-handed mace. Hey, hey.
Power creep.
Oh, let's go. PogChamp.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even be that much power creep. That's the thing about staves that gets me though, right? It's like the power of the mods on the staff is like, if you say that's 100, the one-handers are like 80. So equipping 2 one-handers gives you 160 total power level. It doesn't make any sense, man. Doesn't make any sense.
Look, Ziggy, no, it makes perfect sense. So one hands, they're more damage, they're more movement speed, and they're more defense. It's very straightforward. Whereas the staff is cheaper when it comes to MTX because you only need 1. So it's like, are you poor IRL? Then you play staff builds, okay?
I think it would be super easy to fix staves, in my opinion. All you need to do is slap like a +1 or 2 gem modifier onto it, so it's like empower for free or something like that, and then everyone will be using them, right?
Like as an implicit?
As an implicit, yeah.
Jigs.
But then
I think that'd be pretty cool.
But what about my double corruptions? Ree?
Oh, well,
Yeah,
bad
but then
luck,
you can
dude.
double corrupt it to make it give it a +4 instead of a +1. Seems like an alright trade-off.
4 is a bigger
I don't know,
number than
they
1.
need more mobility options, in my opinion, but yeah. Oh, Ziggy knows something about mobility.
Well, no.
Ziggy's face
Oh.
move. Ziggy's face move. What has GGG told him?
No, it's good.
That if they could, they would nerf all the movements. But you can't. You can't. People riot.
Will they? Okay.
They fucking would. Don't pretend that Reddit
Right.
would not.
You
Do
can't.
you
You can't take it
remember?
away.
Do you remember when they wanted to nerf charges and Reddit started on Holy Crusade across the lands?
Well, one of the things they wanted to do with charges that I didn't agree with myself was sort of pigeonholing them into certain roles. You know, making frenzy charges really attack based and power charges really spell based and that sort of thing. Like I don't think that is. I don't know. I don't think that's the way that I would like Path of Exile to go for most things. Some specialization in roles of various mechanics in the game makes a lot of sense, but charges have traditionally been something that any class and any ascendancy and like any archetype can have access to if you find a way to generate them. They're much more of a large scale mechanic than they are a more specialized one.
One completely off-topic thing I'm actually really curious about. So if you remember back to when they were first talked about the Ascendancy rework, one of the concerns was we would feel pigeonholed. Just out of interest, so many leagues later now, the skill rework as well. Do you guys feel pigeonholed into this build must be this Ascendancy, or not really?
Yes. I feel pigeonholed into Deadeye. That's the only thing I can play. But that's that's whatever. I do it to myself.
I think most builds have like 3 or 4, maybe at least 2, so often 3, 4, even 5 good options, and then 1 or 2 like okay options that are a little weird if you want to be a hipster. So I don't think it's that bad, but like it's not like before Ascendancy you could play anything as anything. You know, Marauder bow builds still were doable, but not the best way to play it. And you know, like Ranger spellcasters were doable, but not the best way to play it. And it's still kind of the case. It's just there's more definition to what's good at what, I guess.
The difference between playing like different classes before, like this whole this is like a classic argument people like that was like, but Pee-wee's the game where you could do anything as any class. Like your choice though was rather arbitrary and non-impactful. Like whether you were playing a duelist or a ranger for your build made very little difference. Like a few passes. Now though, like sure you can be pigeonholed in some cases, but you have 3 pretty different ways of doing something. Like if you're talking about a trapper, you can do it as a saboteur, or you could do it as an inquisitor, or you could do it as a scion with a few different variants in that. And they can all be quite different, and the way you like build for your traps are different. You're going trigger radius, or you're going chain reaction, or you're going sunblast, and they all, they're all like a fair bit different, and that's actually somewhat impactful, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree with what Ziggy's saying. Like, people have this like vision of what PoE used to be, like the golden age. People do it with WoW as well. Like vanilla, it's the best. But honestly, back then, you pick your class, and what do you get? You get 3 or 4 different skill points from the starting like circle bit, and you get a different character model and different leveling experience. That's basically it. That's what you were choosing. You weren't choosing any like interesting choices. It was just like
I
how you're
mean,
starting out.
there was quite a big choice for hardcore versus softcore. So a lot of like back in day, a lot of builds were Marauder because they got the most life nodes at the start. So for hardcore, they had like the best or the safest early leveling. So that was quite a big thing pre-ascendancy,
Yeah,
if we're going far enough.
like
So a lot of it was like, do you want to have more damage and more defense early? And like most, like I always use the freeze pulse crip example. That build took Shadow Start and Marauder Start in the finished tree. So it was literally a case of, do you want a more damage weighted start than you went for Shadow? Did you want a more defensive weighted start than you went for Marauder?
Yeah. And there were like fewer choices as well back then. So smaller choices like that were more impactful. You know, you didn't make as many decisions in your build. So the decision of the starting class meant more. But as the game gets more complicated and more in depth, those extra layers of the ascendancy choice, well, it does add a lot of power, and you can go and maybe be a little worried about the power creep that's brought into the game. That's a whole different discussion, though. I think it's beneficial. I don't think it pigeonholes so much as brings diversity for most builds. I'm a little worried about the state of summoners in particular. I've had difficulty justifying picking anything except for Necromancer. Last league, I tried to make a champion summoner work, and it was pretty cool. Like, yeah, my minions couldn't miss. That's nice. But I could also just use a Lycosidé, and then my whole Ascendancy choice didn't matter anymore. That felt a little sad.
I think the main thing I really missed about old PoE was being able to easily route through the middle of the passive skill tree. That's the one thing I miss. Like, we used to have that beautiful highway.
All that did though was got everyone more easily to blood magic because everyone's picked blood magic.
No, look, Ziggy. It was a very interesting time of making builds. Do you have static blows, inner force, then probably iron reflexes? Yes, good fucking build. Let's go.
I love reality checking PoE nostalgia. It's like it's either every single build did the same tree to go get blood magic because you could stack 5 auras with flat life reservation amounts and get shitloads more life. It was like everybody did that. And then I love the second one is showing the E-Top fighting the crab video. I think it's E-Top fighting the crab, the 30-minute crab fight highlight. Always a classic. It's good shit. Good shit.
But yeah.
I think one more thing. Sorry, I just want to add. What does everyone think about Elder Influence and Shaper Influence? Like, have you guys even been doing it after all the removal of all the jazz?
I have a plan to fiddle around with it. I haven't done anything yet though, because I wanted to rush Shaper early on and get Guardians farming and that sort of thing, and I didn't really want to be doing Uber Elder and all that, so I didn't go and interact with Elder too much. But for my next character, I want to be speed farming some. I'm thinking Shaped Gorge because it's really nice and linear, and I can build temples super fast. But I might choose a different map. But I want to be speed farming a specific map, and if I can get that influence ping-ponging back and forth, that would be awesome. That's one of the reasons why I went for Gorge, because it's right up there in a corner, and it's a map that sort of controls that corner. So if I couch Elder in the top left corner of the Atlas, I can then have Gorge and a few other maps, like 1 or 2 other maps, as like pinpoint maps where Elder can't get past unless I let him, or I, am not paying attention. And then I run Gorge 90% of the time and maybe a maze now and again.
What about you guys, Ziggy and Tarke? Do you guys like? Because a lot of people message me that like, I don't understand it, I don't care about it. Why do I have to get my orbs off this? What's War for the Atlas? Like, that's what a lot of stuff I get is.
Like sextant blocking and shape of donuts or whatever, elder donuts or whatever, all that stuff is like the antithesis of how I enjoy the Atlas. So it's just like, I don't even care. It'll have to be something really magical to pull me away from, the way I would much rather play, of doing maps, doing a variety of maps instead of the same map.
For me,
I'm just kind of getting this
because this might be kind of interesting for you. If I was in Trade League, I would be doing the Elder Bubble. I would be doing that, and I'll probably be doing a shit ton of channel farming. Because I'm SSF, what tends to happen is you go through okay, start SSF, let's do Atlas progression. Then once I've done that, I'm going to do Volcano Strat, where I have Volcano as my only tier 4. I farm a shit ton of Volcano, Uberlab, and Zeri, because it just constantly sustains, till I get 1 or 2 combs, because I want those for future builds. And then it's like, you kind of have to do the, I'm going to farm this map for div cards for this build I want to play. And then once I've done all of that, depending on how late into the league we are, I'll then think about doing like the Elder Shaper like square thing. And that's one thing which I think is a little bit lame about the way that Elder and Shaper kind of works. I think most people map probably the way that Ziggy does, where it's kind of like you just sort of let it happen and you just run the maps you want to run. And then
the reason...
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, the reason I bring this up is because I don't know, like the War for the Atlas expansion was like meant to be this big thing. It was meant to revitalize mapping and all this stuff, but all it seems to have done is confuse new players because the orbs are such an essential part of the game, and they're really difficult to understand how to get. You need to like watch a guide if you don't know what you're doing. And then the actual like use of the mechanic by people like me and like Octavian and you guys, it's like not too satisfying anymore after the removal of like the big glowy brain Elder Ring and all that stuff. So yeah, and it seems I don't know, it's a little bit underwhelming to me, like how they handled everything and how it all turned out. It's a bit unfortunate.
Something I realized when I was farming up a red elder yesterday for some memory fragments was that if you properly farm a red elder and nothing goes wrong, you never fight an elder minion until the elder fight, because you are doing shaper zones to expand elder until he's big enough to farm to spawn the elder guardians in himself, and then elder guardian maps and elder maps, for balance reasons, don't have elder minions in them and don't drop elder items. So literally, if your goal is to kill elder and to defeat this massive world-eating influence that is encroaching on the Atlas, you never fight any of his minions. That just seems fucking backwards to me, right? Like, it's like a supervillain that you're going to take down and you never see a single one of his henchmen. They're all sort of near him, but they're kind of not... They don't want to fight you, though. You know? He's just got this backdoor channel that you can go through to avoid every single one of his minions and kill him instantly.
In terms of video game style, it does seem a bit weird that it's kind of like, to fight Elder, you need to, like, beat up Shaper. That, like, it's a bit... backwards in that kind of sense. I don't know.
It's just like the architects, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a bit, that whole thing is a bit weird. Jeez.
It's so difficult from GGG's perspective, though, because if they just let Elder Guardian maps have Elder minions in them and drop Elder items, then suddenly it's super easy to set up perma farm on a single map for like Elder influence benefits. I want to fight some of the tentacle creatures and elder portals. They're cool. But I also want to farm red elder. And it seems so out of place to me that you don't do those two things at the same time.
Yeah.
I think really it's one of those things, and I apologize, Carve, if you're out there. I should have said this to Chris directly. You can only fix that by hiring Carve. Like, GGG have some very talented people working there. But the Elder Shaper system is such like a convoluted, spooky system that you need to be like living in 12D chess to kind of balance that shit. Like, it's really difficult to actually... Because, okay, Grim, if I was to say, okay, we think that it's a bit convoluted, how do you make it more accessible to the average player and less, like, abusable by someone such as yourself? Go.
I don't even want to tackle that. I'm not a game designer. I'll just get flamed. Anything.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of glad Carve isn't here, because Carve would have sat down and very calmly for the next 3.5 hours explained the perfect solution to us.
Yeah. No, I think it's no longer abusable, but that's probably a good thing, right?
Yeah, no, like, it definitely was problematic. It can't work that way. It can't work that you can just park an Elder Guardian on a map, have permanent Elder influence there, and never have to invest anymore. Because that's like, it's like more than a sextant's worth of value for free all the time with basically no time investment except for spawning an Elder in the right place. And also, it would be really annoying RNG-wise, because if you spawn him on the wrong map, then you just have to do it all over again. I mean, I guess that's the time investment, but it wouldn't be fun. It would be like, remember all those complaints that you would get all the time if you stream Path of Exile at all about how annoying it is to build an Elder loop? They were all perfectly legitimate because it was annoying as hell to build an Elder loop. It would be like that, but like ×2 because you have to get him on specifically exactly the right map. So it really can't work the way that it intuitively should. But I'm not a good enough game designer to come up with a solution immediately.
I'm
I
gonna
always
just
feel like that. I'm like, this isn't good. I'm glad I'm not a game dev because I
Didn't-
don't have a better answer.
Didn't Chris Wilson say, or somebody from GGD say, I think in one of the interviews you did, that like the player base is really good at pointing out the problems and really bad at suggesting solutions?
yeah.
That's like game dev.
I mean, this
That's
is
just
the
game
thing
dev
with everything,
thing.
though. If you ask chat any question, they come up with the most convoluted thing in the world. The best example, right before Baeclast started, someone said, Tarke, will you talk about guild housing? And I'm like, well, there's not really much to talk about. The technology isn't there. The current cap of guilds is like 200 players. How are you fitting 200 players in a zone? First response, you could instance it, and then you put them all in different instances, and it's like, well, then it's not guild housing, is it? Because you're all in separate hideouts, you know? People try and come up with these really, like, complex solutions to small things, and sometimes it's just no, you know?
Yeah, I think the main thing that they need to focus on, in my opinion, for GGG is making it accessible to new players and understandable with some depth. Like, have the depth there, but make it doable by the casual, like, average guy. Don't make them watch a YouTube video about it. Just make it explained in the game. Yeah.
Temples are great. Temples are a great example of that.
Occasional YouTube video.
They can
yeah,
watch some of our I will admit, though, it is a little bad. So there are
Just to
some
help a bit.
systems. There are some systems in PoE where people are like, Tarke, can you explain this? And I'm like, look, okay, you've got 3 options. You can either watch Carv's 3-hour video telling you how it works, or you can watch Marty's 2-hour video telling you how it works, or you can watch Grim's 1-hour video telling you how it works. Pick which one you want to watch, and it's not even anything against like, oh, you talk for long. It's like that's just how complex some of this shit is, and yeah. I don't know what they can do about that.
Oh, well, they can make it simpler, right? That's what they have to do. I do want to throw one thing out there because people have been like getting at me about it. And I thought I'd ask you guys about it. The loot, the storage, trading from your stash thing, is that an exploit? Yes or no? Do you guys know what it is?
Where you
If
can open
you-
both at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
have a-
open
can have a
both and
stash.
sell from it for very ethical early league headhunters.
What are you talking about, dude? Like, is that an exploit? It's pretty like, because it was on Reddit for like, I would say like top Reddit for like 1 or 2 days, and GGG religiously reads that. So I'm just curious what you guys had to say about it.
I mean, can't everyone do it?
Oh, absolutely, everyone can do it, but it's like it's kind of like using the game in a weird way. Like you mess with the window size and stuff, right?
It's like you shrink the window down, right? So you do like the widescreen trick, and then you do some clever clicking, and then you get to sell directly from your stash. Which means that if you're someone like, I don't know, Blimblow, let's just say your name sounded like that, and you're trying to
What
chaos
the-
recipe your way to a headhunter, and you're like, how could I make this system more efficient? If only I could sell directly from my stash.
Dude, I'm gonna get banned now. Yikes! See you later, guys. This is the last time.
Dude, this is the trick. I'm just trying to cull any of the competition. I just invite them to Baeclast and get them banned. Fix.
Yeah, see you later, guys. I'm gone.
But
Some
I
people
mean,
are
it's not
confused.
intended, you know.
There's a
I'll
way of
explain what it-
opening up.
Oh, you guys.
All right, you go ahead and explain that since you used it unethically.
Whoa, yikes, man! Come on, dude.
Limbo.
Okay, so basically you can change the screen to windowed mode, halve your screen size by dragging it down, click on a vendor, but right as you walk to them, click away to your stash, hit purchase items, and then when you go to your stash, it'll open up like the trade window, and you can sell directly from your stash, and it may allow you to do the chaos recipe a little bit faster than you normally would be able to, but it's like, I'm probably getting destroyed in chat right now. I'm not even reading it. Yeah, it's there. Like, I'm just gonna say like that's what you can do, and I don't know. This might be my last stream. See you later, guys.
I would argue you're already being punished enough because you're doing the fucking chaos recipe.
Yeah, I mean, there you go, dude. See, feels bad, man.
It's a difficult one to pin down. I mean, I don't think it's intended. I don't think you're supposed to be able to do it. Like, in that regard, I guess it's an exploit. If you want to like actually, go by the literal definition, you are exploiting something that was not intended. Now, like, should that be a punishable offense by some measure. Personally, I don't think so. I don't know. You're doing the chaos recipe faster. I don't think that
Yeah.
there like you got a lot of money out of it for sure, but you could have. How much time do you think you'd save? You saved. Estimate.
Well, I wasn't the one doing it because I was streaming. Obviously, it was my team doing it.
Mhm.
He didn't want to get caught.
Oh, what are you trying to say, Ziggy? No, like you save quite a lot of time doing it because you can just go bang, 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 bang. But yeah, like the problem with it, I think, is that it can warp the economy a little bit if lots of people are doing the chaos recipe. It devalues chaos as the gold standard of currency.
Is this
Apparently,
true that
ETUP
ETUP
got suspended for
Yeah.
it. You know what would be really funny about
See you
this?
guys.
You know what would be good? No, because there's no footage of you doing it, but you're advertising it on my stream. So technically, if anyone was going to get slapped, it would be me.
Oh, see you later, Tarke. No, I thought it was good to bring it up so I can get fixed, right? Honestly, like, it's a big problem. I think it shouldn't be in the game. Like, if I was smart, I wouldn't talk about it, obviously, but, whatever. Here it is.
All right. Well, before Twitch decides to shut me down, has anyone got anything else they'd like to talk about?
No, I think it's good. Incursion's pretty nice. I'll see you guys in a week after my suspension there, so
Yeah.
peace out, guys.
Make it core, please. I want to keep it. Incursion.
Core, yeah.
Yeah. No.
How would you think
crickets in that
they
one.
would make it core? Like, do you think they need to change it?
It's a good question. I think they would, yeah. But the problem is, like, some of the rooms, Tarke was talking earlier about how, like, 1 in 5 temples had a trap room. Some of the rooms are definitely right now balanced around the fact that you get an incursion in every single zone guaranteed. Rebalancing it so that some of the rooms are a lot easier to hit, maybe making it so that if you upgrade to a tier 2 version of a room, you have a very high chance of getting it again. I know you are more likely. It's weighted so that if you have a tier 2 version of a room on your temple, Alva will more often than not give you the option to upgrade it to tier 3. But just some numbers need to be tweaked. The mechanic, though, is too good, I think, to leave behind in the dust. Like, it's incredibly intuitive, it's snappy, it's really well polished. Like, we didn't talk about that much, but the new skills and some of the revamps of the old skills that the temple mobs use are really good. The general design of, like, the architects and stuff, there only seem to be like maybe 5 different types of base architect, but they're really cool looking. They've got badass skills. Alva's like voice acting is top notch. There's just so much polish and shine. I really want to keep it. It's shiny. I want to keep it in the game.
I mean,
I briefly spoke to one of the guys who was working on the new effects, because you'll notice a lot of the new skills used by mobs in the temples have new effects. I briefly spoke to one of the devs who was working on that, and a shitload of work went into that. So that's a good suggestion that they are, considering keeping it core, or potentially having some of it make its way into the game. This is actually one of those rare cases where I feel like the community, somebody in my chat, I thought come up with a very elegant solution. So if you made this a 10% of every map kind of deal, then that would not feel good with the way the temple is, right? Because when you do like 100 maps and you finally get a temple and then it's garbage, that feels really bad. The solution I heard was that once you do one Alva, then every map after that for 10 maps gives you Alva. So that once you've like activated the temple, you then do it until you run it. Huh. And then it's like a rare spawn again until you meet it for that first time. I feel like that sounds like such a good way of implementing it. I don't know. I thought it was a really clever idea.
Spawn chance though, wouldn't she? Would she be like 5% or something like that? Quite low.
So like, yeah, you ran like 10 maps and then you found her, or 20 maps and then you found her, and then it was one after the other, bang, 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 bang. You did your temple and then you ran it.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to implement. I guess you get people complaining they'll never see her, but I mean, you get that for everything, correct?
I mean, yeah. I think that one of the main issues that we might run into, and I think we'll run into it in about a month or two's time, is people might get bored of the tile set. Because there isn't that much variation in a room-by-room basis. So I love Incursion, I really do want it to stick around, but I feel like even before this league is over, people will be bored of the tile set itself, and that's something that Pee-wee's always been quite bad at, is having variety of the same tile sets. So it's like, this league are only doing this one map, so you're just seeing the same thing over and over and over again. So I'm not sure if after like 2 years of running Incursions, we'd still be excited to go to the same temple. I think it'd be amazing to to expand on it a little bit. And I know that people like to complain about, oh, that's a stupid point of view, but you would be surprised how much difference it makes in doing the exact same tile set, but just with different lighting. Like, it's light and day, literally light and day on how much of a difference that makes.
That's actually a pretty good point. Like, we haven't really had a mechanic like this before outside maybe of Abyssal Depths that really consistently sends you to another whole separate kind of content very regularly. You know, like Breach, it's hard if there's a low spawn rate of breaches in the game or a low spawn rate of essences or something. It's hard to get exhausted of those because they take up at most like 20, 30, 40 seconds of your time. But you could pretty easily get exhausted of Incursion, of temples, if they're part of the core game, you know, and just want to skip them, which I guess is fine. You know, the players who want to run them can run them. The players who don't can skip them. But eventually people might get to the point where like in Alva is just too much of a time commitment. You know, you don't want to commit to the next 10 maps and then a temple worth of time spent in the same temples that you've done about 100 times in the past.
Has anyone here actually skipped Alva yet, though? Like, on purpose? And, like, I don't want to do that?
Only while leveling new characters.
Yeah, or like I had to drop down to some lower tier maps to manipulate Elder a bit, and I would skip over Alva so as to not dilute my temple level somewhat.
I've not been skipping in Endgame at all. And barely in leveling. Other later characters, like Tarke says, you'll probably skip off, but yeah. Feels good, man.
I'm genuinely curious, since a lot of people are like, that's a stupid reason. How many times have you guys been in that scenario where you're just sick of running the exact same map over and over and over again, that you just run something just so it looks slightly different? Like, for me, that's huge. I fall into that quite a lot.
Really?
Yeah, like, I don't know, I can run...
Yes.
I can happily run, like, 1 million of the same map, but at some point I just need a slight palette change. And I've said this a lot of times on Baeclast. I think that's the one thing that Diablo did well. When they changed Greater Rifts to have good lighting, and each one just looked different. It's crazy the amount of difference that you know, shit makes.
I think lighting in the Atzwaddle temple is a problem. It's too dark, in my opinion, but yeah.
They had sliding door technology, but not movement-sensitive lamps.
That would actually be cool if when you're walking around, like, torches light up as you walk around. That'd be dope. Nice, warm, flickering lighting in there. Ooh, I like the sounds of that.
Can I actually say, though, since we have it, dude, the fucking doors, it actually fucks me more that some of the doors open, because you get used to it, right? Like, you get used to the doors opening.
Yeah.
So then you start, like, face planting doors. Like, why isn't it, oh, I need to click this. And then you go back to running Incursion, you start trying to click on the doors, but they're already open, and it's like... Just make it everywhere. Just make it everywhere have self-opening doors.
And the
or
modern
no
day temple doesn't
doors.
have it. The modern day temple's doors don't open automatically, like except like
Really?
the rolling, the circle
Like,
ones.
I
But
don't know about you guys, but I click the doors anyway in the Incursion. I'm just like so used to clicking doors, so like I don't even notice.
but you're not clicking them; they're already
But
open.
I'm not. Yeah, exactly.
You're just clicking
But I
empty
am clicking
space. It's a wasted
So, yeah.
click, mate. Inefficient
Oh.
gameplay. You could be You could be farming headhunters from your stash in that time.
Oh man, I'm never gonna live that down, am I? Jeez. From my stash. No, I think to sum it all up, the Incursion League is good for new players, coming back players. I think everyone's getting something new through leveling and stuff like that. The rewards are there. Longevity looks good, and it's something everyone's enjoying so much they all want it to go core, right? So I think it's a very good league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the complaints that I have are like minor, and basically I'm saying I want more of this, but like slightly different flavors, please. So I definitely like it, for sure. I want more. I want to see more of it already. Maybe that's a bit too much to ask. That's definitely too much to ask, but that's our job here, right?
Some extra sprinkles, some like
Back to the cake analogy.
on top.
I haven't had
Some
breakfast yet.
fresh up
It's
flake.
it's like 11 a.m. where I am.
I've been really feeling lunch. Actually, I haven't eaten today either, and it's 4:30. But
Wow, it's
you know what
2
they
a.m.
could do, which would be really awesome though? Outside of just like adding new rooms, eventually adding different temples. Mostly just because I'm sick of course it's lost, it's in a jungle.
Of course it's lost. It's in a desert.
Exactly, it's brilliant.
Of course it's lost. This is a huge mountain.
So what do you think?
Of course, it's last at the start of every single one, though.
It's my favorite line. I hope they never change it and never add any other lines to that.
We had to come all the way out here.
Oh,
Eh? No.
so good.
Okay.
No, same line, never change it. I want it. I'm gonna make it my sub sound or something.
What, like Stupid Beast all over again? New meme? New meme, different league?
Einhar will forever live on in our memes and our hearts.
Okay,
Hey, chat,
real
what time
talk
is
though.
it?
Einhar has
Yes,
better
it's
voice
time.
acting. I'm just saying that. Like, you can't deny
Really?
it. What do you mean, really?
He
Come
had
on,
more
David.
more personality. He was
Yeah, I guess so.
an interesting character.
I don't know. I'm a pretty big fan of Alva. She's just like she's quite honest. She's quite an
Yeah,
honest character.
Ziggy-
She just wants
Ziggy gets me.
shiny things. She just wants loot. She just wants to get rich. She's the most honest character we've had so far.
Well,
See,
horrible
Einhar was real
people, though.
shifty. He's like, I still don't really know what Einhar's motivations were. Why was he? What was his deal? But Alva, she talks shit about you when you like do certain runes in the temple, and you're like, why on earth would you put this in the temple? Exile? Are you stupid? And then when you do it, she's like, Exile, you're a genius. Or maybe she says that. I like.
Okay, Ziggy, how about this then? I challenge you to change all notification sounds on your phone to "Of course it's lost, it's a jungle," and I'll do the same for Stupid Beast, and we'll see who loses it first.
I will win this competition. I'll be very happy with that.
Really?
Still
Okay,
saying
it's impressive.
Exile.
Taste-
Oh god. Zay, no long. This is how you know the podcast has gone on for an extra half
Yeah,
an
this
hour.
is it. It's gone on a bit too long now. I actually really like this voice line from Lily in Act 4. Lily's not even
just
in Act 4.
time.
That was bad. Okay, so on that note, we will be back in 2 weeks' time. I would like to thank everyone. Where can we find people? Octavian, where can we find Octavian?
Twitch.tv/Octavian0, the number, not the word. I'm there from 1 to 9 p.m. EST every day. You can also find me on YouTube under the name Octavian.
I'm disappointed you didn't say in the jungle, but it's fine.
No.
Grim, where can we find you? Not in the jungle.
Yeah, just mainly on YouTube, just Grimro at YouTube, yeah. Probably in about a week after my suspension. Feels good, man. Alright.
Oh god.
And
I'm
Mr.
gonna get
Ziggy
blamed for
Daniel,
that
what
if
about
happens.
you?
What? Yeah.
Mm.
ZiggyD. You can search for me, but just make sure you look at the right time, which is just in time. Let's make
Wow.
history.
Fantastic.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What about you, Tarke? Where can we find you?
Oh, well, you can
Yeah.
find me at twitch.tv/RaizeQT